I thought I was simply buying coffee for a shivering man outside the probate court. But when my sister Lila saw him, she didn't just sneer, she froze. Her knuckles turned white, and genuine terror filled her eyes. I didn't understand until we walked inside, and the beggar took the seat at the head of the table. He wasn't a stranger asking for change. He was the secret my family had spent 30 years trying to bury. The silence in my apartment was not empty. It was structural. It was a load-bearing wall I had built brick by brick over the last 5 years, mortared with the safety of a boring job and the luxury of unlisted phone numbers. At 33 years old, I, Audrey Griffin, had finally curated a life small enough to manage. I had a beige sofa that I had bought with my own money, a coffee maker that worked reliably every morning, and a view of a brick alleyway that offered absolutely no drama. Most people in Briar Glen, Massachusetts, wanted the view of the river or the manicured squares near the town center. I wanted the alley. The alley was honest. It did not pretend to be anything other than a place where people put their trash. My life was intentional. I was a financial analyst for a mid-sized logistics firm. I dealt in spreadsheets, in predictable columns where assets and liabilities always had to balance eventually, if they did not balance. You looked for the error, you corrected it, and you moved on. There was no screaming in accounting. There were no passive-aggressive gifts that came with strings thick enough to strangle you. Then the letter came. It arrived on a Tuesday, the day I usually reserved for deep cleaning the bathroom, a ritual I clung to because scrubbing grout felt like the opposite of being a griffin. The envelope was heavy, cream-colored cotton bond that felt more like fabric than paper. The return address was embossed in a navy blue that cost more per ounce than my entire wardrobe. Hart and Dalloway, LLP. I did not have to open it to know what it felt like inside. It would feel like my mother, Candace. I left it on the kitchen counter for 3 hours while I organized my spice rack. Alphabetical, cumin, curry, dill. I was breathing through my nose, steady and slow. A technique a therapist had taught me 6 years ago before I decided that therapy was too expensive and that moving across town was a cheaper way to solve my problems. Finally, I opened it. The letter was brief. It was a summons, phrased as a polite invitation, to the reading of the last will and testament of Margot Griffin, my grandmother, the matriarch of Griffin Threadworks, the woman who had built a textile empire from a single loom in a basement and then watched her children slowly pick the diamonds out of the setting. I had not seen Margot in 2 years. Our relationship had dissolved into a series of tense, clipped phone calls that usually ended with her coughing into the receiver and hanging up before I could say goodbye. The last time we spoke, 3 months before she died, she had sounded lucid but terrified. "Do not trust what looks polished, Audrey," she had rasped. "That is where the rot starts, under the varnish." I had assumed she was talking about the mahogany furniture in her bedroom. Now, holding the heavy paper, I wondered if she had been talking about her family. My phone buzzed against the granite countertop. The screen lit up with a photo I had assigned to the contact years ago. A picture of a porcelain doll with a crack running down its face. Lila. I stared at the phone. My younger sister, the golden child, the one who had stayed in the family manor, who had learned to navigate Candace's moods like a seasoned sailor reading the wind. Lila, who wore compassion like a seasonal accessory. I swiped to answer. "Audrey," Lila said. Her voice was bright, crystalline, and utterly exhausting. "I was terrified you wouldn't pick up. Did you get the letter? Wesley said the courier dropped it off this morning." "I got it," I said. My voice sounded flat in my own kitchen. "I'm looking at it. It is dreadful, isn't it?" she sighed. "The formality of it. I told Mother that sending a courier was too aggressive, that we should just call you, but you know how she gets about protocol, especially with legal things. She wants everything above board." "Above board," I repeated. "Is that what we are calling it?" "Oh, stop," Lila said, a laugh fluttering in her throat. "Don't be difficult before we have even started. I am just calling to check in. It is going to be a hard day tomorrow, for all of us. I wanted to make sure you were okay. and to ask what you are planning to wear. There it was, the Griffin pivot. From tragedy to wardrobe in under 10 seconds. I am wearing clothes, Lila. Probably the gray suit. The gray one? A pause. I could hear her frowning. The one you wore to Cousin Mark's wedding? It is a bit boxy, isn't it? I mean, it is very professional, very financial analyst. But this is the reading of the will. Audrey, there will be people there. Judge Markham is presiding. Wesley will be there. You want to look capable. I am capable, I said. My suit doesn't change that. I know, she soothed. I just mean, Mother is worried. She thinks you might be overwhelmed. She mentioned something about you potentially causing a scene. My hand tightened around the phone. A scene? I haven't raised my voice in 5 years. Lila, I am not the one who throws vases. That was one time, and Mother was under a lot of stress, Lila said quickly. Defending a history she was also a victim of. Look, just try to be smooth, okay? For me? It is likely just a formality anyway. We all know the estate is complicated. Wesley says most of it is tied up in trusts and the foundation. You probably just have to sign a waiver and receive a token amount, maybe a few $1,000s. Honestly, it is a waste of your time to even make you drive down there. But the law is the law. She was managing me. I could feel it. She was lowering my expectations, setting the stage so I would walk in expecting nothing and walk out grateful for scraps. It was a classic Candace move, filtered through Lila's softer delivery. I will be there. Lila, I have to go. I have work. Right, work, she said, the word tasting sour in her mouth. See you tomorrow. Love you. Bye. I hung up and looked at the alleyway. A stray cat was picking its way through a pile of wet cardboard. It looked hungry, sharp, and entirely unconcerned with what anyone thought of its coat. I felt a sudden kinship with it. The morning of the inheritance meeting was cold. It was the kind of New England cold that did not just sit on your skin, but tried to dismantle your bones. The sky was a flat, hostile, gray, hanging low over the slate roof of the Cranford County Probate Court. I arrived 45 minutes early. Punctuality was my armor. If I was early, I controlled the environment. I could find the exits. I could find the bathroom. I could settle my breathing before the Griffin entourage arrived in their cloud of perfume and judgment. I parked my sensible sedan 3 blocks away to avoid paying the premium parking fees near the courthouse. Old habits died hard. And walked the rest of the way. The wind whipped my hair across my face. I was wearing the gray suit. It was boxy. I did not care. It was warm, and the pockets were deep enough to hide my clenched fists. The courthouse was an imposing structure of granite and limestone, built to make you feel small and guilty before you even entered. Broad steps led up to massive double doors. That was where I saw him. He was sitting on the bottom step, curled in on himself like a dried leaf. He was wearing a coat that might have been green once but was now the color of engine oil. His pants were frayed at the hems, revealing mismatched socks. One of his legs was extended at an awkward angle, as if the knee did not bend quite right. People were walking past him, lawyers in camel hair coats, clerks clutching coffees, citizens there for traffic tickets. They did not just ignore him. They actively unsaw him. Their eyes slid over him like he was a smudge on the lens of the world. I stopped. I did not want to stop. I wanted to go inside, find a corner, and review my emails until the executioner called my name. But my grandmother's voice was in my head again. Don't trust what looks polished. This man was the opposite of polished. He was shivering. It was a violent, rhythmic shaking that rattled his jaw. His hands, resting on his knees, were raw and red. I walked up the steps and stopped in front of him. He did not look up. He was staring at the pavement, focused on a crack in the stone. "Excuse me," I said. He flinched. It was a small movement, a tightening of the shoulders, as if he expected a kick. He looked up slowly. His eyes surprised me. I expected the glazed, yellowed look of addiction or the hollow stare of exhaustion. Instead, His eyes were a piercing, clear gray. They were intelligent. They were scanning my face, my shoes, the badge on my purse, assessing me with a speed that felt professional. "I am not asking for money," he said. His voice was rough, like gravel tumbling in a mixer, but his diction was precise. "I am just resting." "You are freezing," I said. "It is 20 degrees out here." "I am aware of the temperature, ma'am." "Thank you." He looked back down at the crack in the stone. "Do you want a coffee?" I asked. He looked up again. He hesitated. "Coffee?" "There is a cart right there," I said, pointing to the stainless steel vendor cart near the fountain. "I am getting one. Do you want one?" He looked at the cart, then back at me. "Black, please, if it is not too much trouble." "And a sandwich?" He swallowed. I saw the muscles in his throat work. Pride was warring with hunger, and hunger was winning, but it was a close fight. "That is not necessary. Ham and cheese or turkey?" I asked. "Turkey," he said softly. "Please." I walked to the cart. I bought 2 large coffees, black, and 2 turkey sandwiches on croissants. I didn't even like turkey, but I bought 2 so it wouldn't look like charity. It would look like lunch. When I came back, he tried to stand up to take the food. He winced, grabbing his right knee. "Sit down," I said. I handed him the cardboard cup and the paper-wrapped sandwich. "Thank you," he said. He held the cup with both hands, letting the heat seep into his palms. He did not drink immediately. He just held it, closing his eyes for a second. When he opened them, he looked at me with that same unsettling clarity. "You are here for the probate docket." It wasn't a question. "I am," I said. "How did you know?" "You are dressed for business, but you parked 3 blocks away at the municipal lot," he said, nodding toward the direction I had come from. "Lawyers park in the reserved lot. Defendants park in the structure. Only family members who don't want to be here walk from the municipal lot." I stared at him. "You are very observant." "I have a lot of time to watch people," he said. He took a sip of the coffee. A look of pure relief washed over his face. "My name is Cal Rowan." "Audrey," I said. I didn't offer my last name. "Why are you sitting out here, Cal? There is a shelter on 4th Street. "Crowded," he said. "And loud. I prefer the quiet. Besides, I like the architecture here. It is honest. Brutal, but honest." He took a bite of the sandwich. He ate slowly, deliberately, not wolfing it down like I expected. He ate like someone who respected the food. "Are you waiting for someone?" I asked. He paused mid-chew. "In a way, I am waiting to see how the day turns out." "You?" "I am waiting to get it over with," I admitted. I didn't know why I was talking to him. Maybe because he was the only person I had met in Briar Glen who didn't know who my mother was. "My grandmother passed away. We are reading the will." "Ah," Cal said. "The end of an era. Was she a good woman?" "She was. Complicated," I said. "She was strong. She built a company from nothing. But she was hard." "Strong people usually have to be," Cal said. He looked toward the street. A black town car was pulling up to the curb. "The vultures are circling." I followed his gaze. "That's just a car." "It is a hired car," Cal noted. "Tinted windows. Driver is staying in the seat. Someone important is coming." "You can't sit here all day, Cal," I said. "The security guards do rounds at 9. They will make you move." As if summoned, the heavy glass doors opened and a guard stepped out. He was a large man with a thick mustache and a badge that gleamed in the gray light. He looked at Cal with weary familiarity. "All right, buddy," the guard said, his voice booming. "You know the drill. You can't block the stairs. Let's go. Move it along." Cal sighed. He started to wrap the half-eaten sandwich in the paper. He reached for his cane, a piece of varnished wood that looked hand-carved, and began the painful process of leveraging himself up. Something in me snapped. Maybe it was the memory of Lila's voice telling me to be smooth. Maybe it was the way the guard looked at Cal, like he was trash that needed to be swept up before company arrived. Maybe it was just that I was tired of being told where to stand and how to behave. "He is with me," I said. The guard stopped. He looked at me, taking in the gray suit, the sensible heels, the expensive leather purse. He blinked. "Ma'am?" "I said he is with me," I repeated. My voice was steady. "We are finishing our coffee. Is there a rule against drinking coffee on the steps?" "Well, no," the guard said, shifting his weight. "But he can't loiter. We have docket starting in 10 minutes. "He isn't loitering," I said. "He is my guest. In fact, it is too cold out here." I turned to Cal. "Cal, would you like to come inside? The lobby is heated. There are benches." Cal froze. He looked at me, his gray eyes wide. "Ma'am, you don't have to do that." "I know I don't," I said, "but I have 20 minutes before my hearing, and I don't want to sit alone. Please, come inside." Cal studied me. He was looking for the trap. He was looking for the moment where I would pull out a camera for social media, or where I would ask him for a favor in return. He searched my face for 5 long seconds. "Okay," he said softly. "Okay." I offered him my arm. He hesitated, then shook his head. "I can manage. Thank you." We walked up the stairs together. The guard stepped aside, looking confused but unwilling to challenge a woman in a suit. The lobby was warm. It smelled of floor wax and stale air. I led Cal to a wooden bench near the far wall, away from the metal detectors but visible from the entrance. "This is better," I said. Sitting down, Cal sat next to me, leaving a respectful foot of distance between us. He placed his cane between his knees. "You are going to get in trouble," he said quietly. "I am 33 years old." I said, "I am allowed to have coffee with whoever I want." "Not in this town," Cal said. He looked around the lobby, his eyes darting to the exits, the elevator banks, the security cameras. He was mapping the room. "Not with someone who looks like me." "You look fine," I lied. "I look like a beggar." "Audrey," he said. He used my name. It sounded strange on his tongue, weighty. "And your family? They are not going to like this." "They don't like anything I do," I said. "So it doesn't matter." "It matters," Cal murmured. He was looking at the front doors. The doors opened. The air in the lobby seemed to change instantly. It grew sharper, thinner. My mother walked in first. Candace Griffin. She was 60 years old and looked 45. She was wearing a camel cashmere coat that draped perfectly over her shoulders, cinched at the waist. Her hair was a helmet of blonde highlights, immobile and perfect. She walked with the entitlement of a woman who owned the pavement she stepped on. Behind her was Wesley Hart, our family attorney for 30 years. He was a silver fox in a navy pinstripe suit, carrying a leather briefcase that probably contained more secrets than legal briefs. He was smiling that oily, benevolent smile he used when he was about to crush someone. And then Lila. Lila was wearing black, of course. But it was a fashionable black, a structured dress under a wool coat, black stilettos that clicked sharply on the terrazzo floor. She was holding a clutch bag like a shield. They moved as a phalanx, a wedge of wealth cutting through the public space. I stood up. "Hello, Mother, Lila." Candace stopped. Her eyes swept over me, cataloging the gray suit, my hair, my shoes. She gave a microscopic nod of approval. "Audrey, you are early. Good." "Hi, Audrey," Lila said, leaning in for an air kiss that didn't touch my skin. "You look rested." "Hello, Audrey," Wesley said, his voice a rich baritone. "Shall we head up? The judge is—" Then Lila saw him. Cal was still sitting on the bench. He had not moved. He was holding his coffee cup, looking straight ahead. Lila followed my gaze to the bench, and she stopped. It wasn't a double take. It was a physical impact. All the color drained from her face, leaving her makeup standing out like paint on a mask. Her mouth opened slightly, then snapped shut. Her hand flew to her throat, her fingers clutching the pearl necklace she was wearing. She froze. It was fear, pure, unadulterated panic. "Lila?" I said. Are you okay? She didn't answer. She took a step back, almost stumbling in her heels. She turned her head away sharply, staring at the wall, at the floor, anywhere but at the man on the bench. Candace noticed the disruption. She turned, her eyes landing on Cal. Her reaction was different. She didn't panic. She hardened. Her face went from social mask to granite in a split second. Her eyes narrowed into slits. She looked at Cal, then at me, then back at Cal. Audrey, Candace said. Her voice was a low murmur, but it carried like a whip crack. What is this? This is Cal, I said. I met him outside. He was cold. Candace smiled. It was a terrifying expression. It was the smile of a predator deciding whether to bite or just intimidate. I see. And you thought it appropriate to bring vagrants into a legal proceeding? We are in the lobby. Mother, I said. It is a public building. It is embarrassing, Candace hissed. She stepped closer to Wesley. Wesley, do something. Wesley looked at Cal. He adjusted his cufflinks. Sir, he said, pitching his voice to be authoritative. You can't be here. Cal looked up. He looked at Wesley. Then he looked at Candace. And finally, his gaze landed on Lila, who was still refusing to look at him. Her back turned, her shoulders shaking. I am finishing my coffee, Cal said. Lila, I said, stepping toward my sister. What is wrong? Lila spun around. Her eyes were wet. She grabbed my arm, her fingernails digging into my suit jacket. She pulled me close, her breath hot and smelling of mints and terror. Get him out of here, she whispered. Her voice was trembling. Audrey, please, you have to get him out of here. Now. Why? I whispered back. Do you know him? Just do it, she hissed. Give him money. Give him whatever he wants. Just make him leave before we go upstairs. I am not making him leave, I said, pulling my arm away. He isn't bothering anyone. He is bothering me. Lila's voice rose, cracking. Lila, compose yourself, Candace snapped. People are watching. Candace turned to me. Audrey, this is a display. It is unpredictable behavior. We are here to honor your grandmother, not to run a soup kitchen. Tell him to leave, or I will have security remove him. I looked at my family, the panic in Lila's eyes, the cold hatred in Candace's, the smug indifference in Wesley's. Then I looked at Cal. He was watching Lila. His expression wasn't angry. It was sad. It was a profound, weary sadness, like he was watching a tragedy he had already read the script for. I am staying, Cal said. He stood up. Lila flinched as if he had raised a hand. Audrey, Wesley said, checking his watch. The docket is being called. We need to go upstairs. Leave him. Security will handle the rest. He is fine, I said. I am coming. Get him out, Lila whispered one last time, her voice desperate. No, I said. The clerk appeared at the far end of the hallway. Griffin Estate, courtroom 4B. That is us, Wesley said. He put a hand on Candace's back, guiding her forward. Come along, Lila. Come. Lila took one last terrified look at Cal, then practically ran toward the elevators. Keeping Candace between her and the bench, I lingered for a second. I have to go, I said to Cal. I know, Cal said. Go. Do not be afraid of them. Audrey, I am terrified of them, I admitted. Good, Cal said. Fear keeps you awake. I turned and walked toward the elevators. As I joined the group, I saw Wesley slip his phone out of his pocket. He was typing rapidly, his thumbs flying over the screen. He wasn't checking emails. He was sending a warning. My stomach tightened. I had thought this morning was about money. I thought it was about who got the house and who got the stocks. But looking at Lila's shaking hands and Wesley's frantic texting, I realized I was wrong. This wasn't about a will. This was about a bomb, and I had just invited the detonator into the building. After you, Audrey, Candace said, her voice dripping with ice. I stepped into the elevator. The doors closed, sealing us in together. but as we rose, all I could think about was the man in the lobby and the way he had looked at my sister, like he knew exactly what she was worth, down to the penny. The courtroom smelled of lemon polish and stale anxiety, a scent that seemed to seep from the wood paneling itself. It was courtroom 4B, a small, windowless chamber designed for the quiet dismantling of lives. There was no jury box, just a heavy oak table, 4 chairs, and the raised bench where Judge Elena Markham sat. Judge Markham was a woman who looked like she had been carved out of the same granite as the courthouse exterior. She had steel gray hair pulled back into a severe bun and eyes that magnified everything they touched behind thick, rimless glasses. She did not look at us as people. She looked at us as docket numbers and potential headaches. I sat at the far end of the table, leaving a deliberate 2 empty chairs between myself and my family. To my left, Candace sat with her spine so straight it looked painful. Her hands were folded on the table, manicured fingers interlaced, resting on a leather folio. Beside her, Lila was vibrating. It was a subtle, high-frequency tremor that only someone who had grown up sharing a bedroom with her would notice. She kept smoothing the fabric of her skirt, her eyes darting to the door every time a clerk walked past in the hallway. Wesley Hart stood at the lectern, arranging his papers with the slow, theatrical precision of a man who billed by the minute. He cleared his throat, a wet, guttural sound that made the silence in the room feel heavier. "Thank you for assembling on such short notice," Wesley said, his voice smooth as aged bourbon. "As you know, the late Margot Griffin left specific instructions regarding the timeline of her estate's administration. She was particular. She was controlling," Candace corrected softly, staring straight ahead. "She was thorough," Wesley amended. He adjusted his cufflinks. "I will skip the preamble and move directly to the disposition of assets, as per the family's request." I braced myself. I knew how this went. I had played this scene out in my head 1,000 times since the letter arrived. The house in Eastridge Cove would go to Candace. The majority shares of Griffin Threadworks would go to Lila, to keep the legacy vibrant and youthful. I would get a sum of money, $10,000, maybe 20, and perhaps a piece of jewelry that nobody else wanted. A brooch, a terrifying porcelain cat. Something to say we remembered you, but we did not value you. I was ready for it. I wanted it. I wanted the check so I could put it into my retirement fund and never speak to these people again. "To my daughter, Candace Griffin," Wesley read, his eyes scanning the document. "I leave the Eastridge Cove property and its contents, excluding the items specifically itemized in the attached schedule." Candace nodded, a microscopic movement. It was hers by right, in her mind. "To my granddaughter, Lila Griffin," Wesley continued. Lila sat up straighter. She stopped smoothing her skirt. She looked at Wesley with a hungry, desperate expectancy. "I leave the sum of $50,000, to be paid from the liquid assets of the estate." The silence that followed was instant and absolute. Lila blinked. She turned her head slowly to look at Wesley, as if he had spoken in a foreign language. "Excuse me?" Wesley did not look up. He turned the page. The paper rasped loudly in the quiet room. "And regarding the controlling interest in Griffin Threadworks," Wesley read, his voice losing a fraction of its warmth, "including all voting shares, operational authority, and the position of executor and temporary trustee of the Griffin Family Trust." He paused. He took a breath. I saw his hand tighten on the paper. "I leave these responsibilities and assets to my granddaughter, Audrey Griffin." For a moment, the world stopped turning. I stared at the back of Wesley's suit jacket. I felt a rushing sound in my ears, like the ocean. Audrey Griffin. Me. "That is a mistake," Lila said. Her voice was high, thin, and brittle. She stood up, her chair scraping violently against the floor. "That is a typo. Wesley, tell her it is a typo." "Sit down, Lila," Judge Markham said. Her voice was not loud, but it slammed into the room like a gavel. Lila did not sit. She pointed a trembling finger at me. She lives in an apartment the size of my closet. She hasn't stepped foot in the company in 5 years. Grandmother would never do that. She hated Audrey. She said Audrey was weak. Lila, Candace snapped. Candace had not moved. She was still staring at the table, but her face had gone the color of ash. She looked like a statue that had just realized it was cracking from the inside. The document is quite clear, Wesley said. He turned to look at Candace, his eyes communicating a frantic, silent message. Be quiet. We will fix this. However, there are complexities. Complexities? I asked. My voice sounded foreign to me. What does that mean? It means, Candace said, her voice freezing the air in the room, that my mother was not in her right mind at the end. We all knew it. The dementia was advanced. She was paranoid. She was writing things down that didn't make sense. She was perfectly lucid, I said. I didn't know where the defense came from. I hadn't seen Margot in 2 years, but the attack on her mind felt like an attack on the truth. She called me 3 months ago. She sounded fine. She was hiding it, Candace countered smoothly. She turned to the judge. Your Honor, we intend to contest this will on the grounds of mental incapacity and undue influence. We have medical records prepared. We have testimony from her caregivers. Wesley nodded, reaching into his briefcase. I have the preliminary filing here. Your Honor, it is a standard motion to suspend the appointment of the executor pending a competency hearing. They were ready. They had walked in here knowing exactly what they were going to do. They had printed the paperwork before they even heard the will read. They knew. I looked at them, the coordinated machinery of my family, and I felt a cold, hard anger crystallize in my chest. They weren't just greedy. They were prepared to erase Margot's mind to get what they wanted. Your Honor, Wesley said, sliding a blue folder toward the bench. We ask that the estate be placed in the hands of a court-appointed administrator until— Mr. Hart, Judge Markham interrupted. She didn't look at the folder. She was looking at the will. Before you file anything, you might want to finish reading the document, specifically Article 4, Section 2. Wesley hesitated. He looked at the judge, then back at the papers in his hand. He hadn't read that far. He had assumed he wouldn't have to. He found the section. His eyes scanned it, his eyebrows pulled together. Read it, Mr. Hart, the judge ordered. Wesley cleared his throat again. He looked less like a silver fox now, and more like a trapped animal. The appointment of Audrey Griffin is conditional, he read. The transfer of shares and funds will only be finalized upon the completion of a set of integrity conditions. Conditions? Lila asked, sinking back into her chair. What conditions? The primary condition, Wesley read, his voice tight, is that the executor must commission and complete a full, independent forensic audit of Griffin Threadworks and all affiliated entities, specifically including the Glenbrook Outreach Fund. The room went dead silent. It wasn't the confused silence of before. This was a terrified silence. It was the silence of a bomb squad watching the timer tick down. Lila made a sound, a small, strangled whimper. She covered her mouth with her hand. Candace turned her head slowly to look at Wesley. Her eyes were wide, signaling a warning so intense it felt physical. The Glenbrook Outreach Fund? I asked. What is that? The charity arm? It is a minor philanthropic vehicle, Wesley said quickly. Too quickly. It handles small community grants, scholarships. It is insignificant. If it is insignificant, Judge Markham said, leaning forward, then an audit shouldn't be a problem. It is an invasion of privacy, Wesley protested. It is overreaching. The fund is a separate legal entity. The estate has no jurisdiction to order an audit of a separate 501c3. This clause is unenforceable. Actually, Judge Markham said, flipping a page, Margot Griffin remained the sole signatory and chair of the fund until her death. The estate holds the controlling interest. The clause stands. The language is legally tight. Mr. Hart, it is ironclad. It looks like she had help drafting this. Someone who knew exactly where you would try to poke holes. Wesley's face flushed a deep, mottled red. I object. This is vindictive. It is a will, Mr. Hart, the judge said dryly. It is the last word, and there is one more thing, an addendum. She pointed to a sealed envelope stapled to the back of the document in Wesley's hand. Wesley stared at it. I was not made aware of an addendum. Open it, the judge said. Wesley broke the seal. He pulled out a single sheet of paper. He read it silently. His jaw clenched. Well, Candace demanded. Read it. For the inheritance to be validated, Wesley read, his voice barely a whisper. And for the reading to be considered legal and binding, the following individual must be present in the room to witness the proceedings. Mr. Calder Rowan, Lila gasped. It was a loud, wet sound. Who? Candace asked. Who is that? I don't know, Wesley lied. I could tell he was lying because he didn't look at Candace. He looked at the door. Mr. Rowan? Judge Markham called out, looking past us to the back of the room. The heavy oak doors opened. He walked in. He didn't look like the man I had left in the lobby. The transformation was subtle but total. He had washed his face in the bathroom. His hair, while still long and shaggy, was pushed back from his forehead. He had buttoned his coat to hide the frayed shirt underneath. He wasn't limping as heavily now. He was forcing himself to walk with a rhythmic, measured cadence, using the cane not as a crutch, but as an accessory. He walked past the empty spectator benches. He walked past the railing. He came to the table and pulled out the chair directly across from Lila. He sat down. He placed his cane on the table. He folded his hands. I am present, he said. Lila was hyperventilating. It wasn't a figure of speech. Her chest was heaving up and down, shallow and fast. She was gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles were yellow. She was staring at the table, refusing to lift her eyes, refusing to acknowledge the man sitting 3 feet away from her. Candace was staring at him. She was squinting. Her head tilted slightly to the side. She was running through a mental Rolodex of every face she had ever seen, every waiter she had ever ignored, every gardener she had ever fired. She was trying to place him. You? Candace whispered. I know your eyes. Hello? Candace? Cal said. He didn't call her Mrs. Griffin. He called her Candace. Who are you? She demanded. How did you get in here? This is a closed hearing. Calder Rowan, he said calmly. Appointed by Margot Griffin as independent witness and special investigator for the estate. He reached into the inside pocket of his dirty coat and pulled out a thick, manila envelope. It was sealed with red wax. Margot's old-fashioned way. He slid it across the table toward the judge. My credentials, Cal said, and the deceased's personal instructions. Judge Markham opened the envelope. She scanned the documents inside. She nodded. The notary seal is valid, dated 2 weeks before her death. He is here by her request. Mr. Hart. This is a farce, Wesley spat. He is a vagrant. Audrey found him sleeping on the steps this morning. I saw him. And yet, Cal said, his voice cutting through Wesley's bluster. Here I am, and here you are, and here we all are. He turned to me. For the first time since he entered, his face softened. The mask of the investigator slipped, and I saw the guy who had been grateful for a turkey sandwich. Audrey, he said gently, she left this for you. He reached into his pocket again and pulled out a smaller envelope. It was blue linen paper. It had my name written on the front in handwriting I recognized immediately. Spidery, sharp, jagged, Margot's handwriting. I took it. My hands were shaking. Read it, Cal said. You need to know what you are agreeing to. I opened the envelope. The scent of lavender and old paper wafted out. Margot, my dearest Audrey, if you are reading this, I have finally done the one decent thing I have managed in 80 years. I have died. I am sorry. That is the first thing I need to say. I am sorry I was hard on you. I am sorry I let you drift away. I let you think I didn't care because I thought distance would protect you. I thought if you were far away, living your small, safe life, you wouldn't get pulled into the machine, but the machine is hungry. Audrey, it has been eating the company for years. It has been eating the family. I have been watching the money disappear. It is not strangers stealing from us. It is not bad investments or market downturns. It is the hands that hug you. It is the people who sit at your dinner table. I am too old and too tired to fight them. They think I am senile. I let them think it. It made them careless. It made them sign things they shouldn't have signed in front of me. I am leaving you the mess because you are the only one who has ever cleaned up after yourself. You are the only one who balances her own checkbook. You are the only one who isn't afraid of the truth. Even if you are afraid of everything else, do not trust the smiles. Trust the numbers. Trust Mr. Rowan. He is the grandson of a friend I betrayed a long time ago. He is helping me set things right. This will not be a gift. Audrey, it will be a war. But it is the only inheritance I have left to give you. Burn the rot out. Love. Grandmother. I lowered the letter. The words swam in front of my eyes. The hands that hug you. I looked at Lila. She was still gripping the table, her face a mask of misery. I looked at Candace. She was watching me read, her eyes cold and calculating, trying to gauge how much I knew. I looked at Wesley. He was sweating, a thin sheen of perspiration on his upper lip. Suddenly, the last 30 years of my life snapped into focus. The way I was always pushed to the side, the way they encouraged me to take a job in another city, the way they never talked about business when I was around. They hadn't been excluding me because I wasn't good enough. They had been excluding me because I was a witness they didn't want. They knew I was an analyst. They knew I looked at numbers and saw patterns. They had kept me away to keep me blind. "Well," Judge Markham asked, "Ms. Griffin, do you accept the appointment?" I looked at the letter in my hand. Burn the rot out. I looked at Cal. He nodded, a barely perceptible dip of his chin. "Yes," I said. My voice was steady. "I accept." "Objection!" Wesley shouted. "We are contesting this immediately." "Noted," Judge Markham said, banging her gavel. "The will is entered into probate. Ms. Griffin is appointed temporary trustee. The audit is ordered to commence immediately. Meeting adjourned." The sound of the gavel was like a gunshot. Wesley was on his phone instantly, whispering furiously. Candace stood up, smoothing her coat, her face composed but deadly. "You have made a mistake, Audrey," Candace said. She didn't shout. She just stated it like a fact, like gravity. "You are playing a game you do not understand." "I am not playing." "Mother," I said, "I am working. I am the executor." "For now," she said. "Enjoy it while it lasts. It will be a very short tenure." She turned and walked out, her heels clicking on the floor. Wesley followed her, shooting a venomous look at Cal as he passed. Lila was the last to move. She stood up slowly, her legs shaking. She looked at Cal. "Please," she whispered. It was barely a sound. Cal looked at her. "The truth, Lila. That is the only way out," Lila sobbed. A single, sharp intake of breath, and ran out of the room. I was left alone with Cal and the judge. "Good luck, Ms. Griffin," Judge Markham said. She gathered her files and vanished into her chambers. I walked out into the hallway. The air felt cooler out here, but my skin was burning. "Audrey?" Lila was waiting for me near the water fountain. She had sent Candace and Wesley ahead. She was alone. Her mascara was smeared under one eye. She grabbed my arm. Her grip was desperate, painful. "Audrey, stop," she pleaded. "You have to stop this. You can't do the audit." "Lila, let go of me," I said. "Why are you so afraid of an audit? If the charity is legitimate, there is nothing to find." "It is not about the charity," she hissed. "It is complicated. You don't understand how business works. Sometimes you have to move things around. Sometimes you have to make payments to facilitate things." "Facilitate what?" I asked. "Bribes? Laundering?" "Don't say those words," she begged, looking around wildly. "Audrey, listen to me. I can get you money, real money, not the 50,000. I can get you 500,000, cash. Wesley can structure it so it looks like a gift. You can move away. You can go to Europe. You always wanted to go to Italy, remember? You are trying to bribe me? I asked, staring at her. With my own inheritance? It is not a bribe. It is a settlement. Just resign as executor. Let Wesley handle it. Please, if you do this, if you let that man dig through the files, you are going to destroy everything. That man, I said. Cal, you know him, don't you? Lila flinched. I have seen him before. He is dangerous. Audrey, he is not who he says he is. He seems to be exactly who he says he is, I said. An investigator. He is trying to ruin us. She was crying now, ugly, gasping tears. Please, I am your sister. Doesn't that mean anything? I am begging you, stop this. I looked at her. I saw the sister who used to braid my hair when we were 6. I saw the sister who used to sneak me cookies when Candace sent me to bed without dinner. But I also saw the sister who had watched me sit at the children's table at Christmas when I was 30 years old. I saw the sister who had never once defended me against Candace's cruelty. It means everything. Lila, I said softly. That is why I have to do it, if you are in trouble. The truth is the only thing that saves you. The truth will kill us, she whispered. She let go of my arm. She stepped back, looking at me with a mixture of heartbreak and horror. You are going to regret this, she said. You are going to wish you had stayed in your little apartment. She turned and walked away, wiping her face with her sleeve, looking more like a frightened child than a corporate heiress. I stood there, leaning against the cold marble wall. My knees felt weak. She offered you money? I turned. Cal was standing by the courtroom door. He was leaning on his cane, watching me. $500,000, I said. To quit? That is a low number, Cal mused. They must be desperate. If they weren't panicked, they would have offered $1 million. Who are you? Cal? I asked. Really? Margot said you are the grandson of a friend she betrayed. What does that mean? He walked over to me, up close. I could see the lines of fatigue around his eyes. He looked tired, but solid. It means I have a stake in this too, he said. But I am not here to hurt you. Audrey, I promise you that. I am here because Margot knew you would need a shield. I don't need a shield, I said reflexively. I can take care of myself. You can handle spreadsheets, Cal said. You can handle numbers, but you can't handle them. Not yet. They are going to come for you. Audrey, they are going to use shame. They are going to use lawyers. And they are going to use your own memories against you. Why should I trust you? I asked. You lied to me this morning. You pretended to be a beggar. I didn't pretend, he said. He tapped his bad leg with the cane. I have been living on the street for 6 months. That wasn't a costume. I needed to see who they were when they thought no one was watching. I needed to see who you were. And you bought me a sandwich, he said. A small smile touched the corner of his mouth. You didn't have to. You could have walked by. That tells me everything I need to know. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, battered business card. It had a phone number on it. No name. If you need me, he said, call. I am staying at the Motel 6 on the highway. Margot paid for a month in advance. You're staying at a motel? Luxury, he said. Compared to the courthouse steps. He turned to leave. Cal, I called out. He stopped. The Glenbrook Outreach Fund, I said. What is it really? He didn't turn around. He just spoke over his shoulder. It is a washing machine, Audrey, he said grimly, and it has been running on the heavy cycle for a very long time. He walked away, his cane tapping a steady rhythm on the floor. I watched him go. Then I looked down at the letter in my hand. Burn the rod out. I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. I buttoned my gray suit jacket. I walked out of the courthouse and toward the municipal parking lot. I had a job to do. I had an audit to start. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just Audrey the accountant. I was Audrey the executor. And I was going to balance the books. no matter who I had to subtract to do it. The headquarters of Griffin Threadworks stood in the center of Holleridge like a tombstone marking the grave of American manufacturing. Holleridge was one of those Massachusetts mill towns that had died 20 years ago but hadn't stopped moving yet. The river that ran through it was sludge brown, and the brick factories that lined its banks were mostly converted into luxury lofts that remained stubbornly vacant or storage units for people with too much junk and not enough future. Griffin Threadworks was the exception. It was still an operating textile firm. Technically, the building was a 4-story brick fortress with a lobby that screamed 1990s corporate arrogance, polished black granite floors, chrome turnstiles, and a massive abstract sculpture that looked like a tangled knot of copper wire. It was meant to represent interconnectivity to me. It just looked like a mess that no one could untie. I walked in on a Wednesday morning, wearing my gray suit, carrying a briefcase that contained nothing but a notepad, a pen, and the court order appointing me as temporary trustee. The security guard didn't know who I was. He made me sign in as a visitor. I didn't correct him. The boardroom was on the top floor. It smelled of lemon pledge and fear. 5 men sat around the mahogany table. These were the remnants, as Margot had called them in her letter. The board of directors. Men who had been collecting 5-figure quarterly checks for years while the company slowly bled out. They looked at me with a mixture of amusement and irritation. To them, I was Candace's estranged daughter, the one who crunched numbers for a logistics firm. I was a temporary inconvenience. Ms. Griffin, the chairman, a man named Arthur Vance, whose neck spilled over his collar, said without standing up, "We were surprised by the court's decision. We assume this is a formality before the will is successfully contested. You can assume what you like, Mr. Vance," I said, taking the seat at the head of the table. It felt too big for me. "But until a judge says otherwise, I am the trustee, and we have work to do." "We are in the middle of a quarter," Vance said dismissively. "Operations are sensitive. We can't have you disrupting the workflow with inquiries." "The workflow is exactly what I'm here to discuss," I said. "Specifically, the cash flow." I opened the door to the hallway. "Please come in." 3 people walked in. They were not Griffins. They wore suits that were sharper than mine, and they carried laptops that looked like weapons. "This is the team from Northlake Forensics Group," I announced. "They are an independent forensic accounting firm. I have retained them to conduct a full audit of Griffin Threadworks, its subsidiaries, and the Glenbrook Outreach Fund. They will need access to all physical and digital records going back 10 years. The silence in the room was brittle. Vance turned a shade of purple that looked dangerous. "This is hostile," Vance sputtered, standing up. "You are bringing outside auditors into a family company? This is a breach of trust." "Trust is earned. Mr. Vance," I said, channeling a coldness I didn't know I possessed. "The audit begins today. Any obstruction will be reported directly to Judge Markham as a violation of the court order. Do I make myself clear?" Vance looked at the Northlake team, then at me. He sat down slowly. "You are making a mistake, Audrey. Your mother won't like this." "My mother isn't the executor," I said. "I am. My mother didn't just dislike it. She declared war." The call came 2 hours later, while I was setting up a temporary office in what used to be Margot's workspace. The room had been untouched for months. It still smelled of her peppermint tea. "You are ungrateful," Candace said. She didn't say hello. Her voice was ice over gravel. "I raised you. I clothed you. I gave you the best education money could buy. You sent me to boarding school when I was 10. Mother," I said, watching dust motes dance in the light of the window. "And you didn't call me on my birthdays." "I was running a family," she snapped. "And now you are destroying it, bringing in strangers, auditors. Do you have any idea how that looks? It looks like we are criminals." "If we aren't criminals, then the audit will prove we are clean," I said. "Why are you so worried?" "Because business is nuanced," she shouted. It was the first time I had ever heard her raise her voice. "There are relationships. There are agreements. You are going to burn bridges we have spent 40 years building. If you continue with this, Audrey, you are finished. I will cut you off. No Christmas, no family gatherings. You will be a stranger to us." I held the phone away from my ear. "Mother," I said softly, "I have been a stranger to you for years. You are just threatening to make it official." I hung up. My hand was shaking. It wasn't fear. Exactly. It was the vibration of a cord being cut. I had spent my whole life waiting for her to love me. Now, I realized she only wanted to own me. I met Cal that evening at a diner on the edge of town. It was the kind of place that served breakfast 24 hours a day and didn't ask questions about who you were meeting. Cal was sitting in a booth, nursing a coffee. He was clean-shaven now, wearing a flannel shirt and jeans that looked new but cheap. He looked like a construction worker or a mechanic. He blended in perfectly. "How did it go?" he asked as I slid into the booth opposite him. "They hate me," I said. "Vance looked like he wanted to strangle me. Candace disowned me. Again." "Good," Cal said. "If they liked you, you would be doing it wrong." "I feel sick." "Cal," I admitted, "I feel like I am betraying them. I keep wondering if everyone is right, if I am just doing this for attention. Maybe I brought you into the courthouse because I wanted to hurt them." Cal put his coffee cup down. He looked at me with those intense, gray eyes. "You didn't bring me in to hurt them," he said. "You brought me in because you are the only one who saw a human being on those steps." "But the disguise," I said. "Why did you do it? Why did you live like that for months?" "It wasn't just a test for you." "Audrey," Cal said. "It was research. I have been in Briar Glen for 6 months. I didn't just sit on the courthouse steps. I sat outside the loading docks at the Threadworks warehouse. I sat outside the back entrance of the bank where the Glenbrook Fund holds its accounts." He pulled a small notebook from his pocket. It was tattered, the pages filled with tiny, precise handwriting. "I saw things," he said. "I saw delivery trucks leaving the warehouse empty but coming back with signed invoices. I saw couriers taking envelopes from Wesley Hart's office to a P.O. box center in a strip mall at 2 a.m. I saw the patterns: small transfers, vendor kickbacks, consulting fees paid to companies that don't have websites." "You tracked all that?" I asked. "While sleeping on the street?" "People are invisible when they are poor," Cal said. "Nobody looks at the homeless guy digging for cans in the recycling bin. They don't realize he's reading the shredded documents you didn't destroy properly. I wanted to see who they were when they thought they were safe." "And what did you find?" "I found that they are very comfortable," Cal said. "They have been doing this for so long they stopped being careful. But they are terrified of you, Audrey, because you are inside the castle now." "I worry people will think I staged it," I said, looking down at the table. "Me and the beggar. The savior complex. Let them think what they want," Cal said quietly. He leaned forward. "Your sister, Lila, when she saw me in the lobby, her fear wasn't about optics. It wasn't because I was dirty or because I embarrassed her. It was about me. She recognized me." "She admitted that," I said. "She said she saw you at a fundraiser." "She saw me," Cal agreed. "But she didn't just see a face. She saw a memory she has been trying to drown for a decade. She knows who I am, Audrey, or at least, she knows who I am connected to." I didn't expect Lila to come to me. I was at my apartment that night, staring at a spreadsheet Northlake had sent over, trying to make sense of a column labeled Miscellaneous Outreach. My buzzer rang at 11 o'clock. I checked the monitor. It was Lila. She looked different. She wasn't wearing the armor. No structured coat, no heels, no makeup. She was wearing sweatpants and an oversized hoodie. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot. She looked young. She looked like the little sister I used to protect from thunderstorms. I buzzed her in. She walked into my apartment and didn't make a comment about the size or the furniture. She just walked to the sofa and sat down, pulling her knees up to her chest. "I can't sleep," she said. "Do you want tea?" I asked. "I want vodka," she said. "But tea is fine." I made the tea. Chamomile. I brought it to her. She held the mug with both hands, staring at the steam. "I know him," she whispered. I sat in the armchair opposite her. "Cal?" She nodded. I didn't know his name was Cal. I didn't know who he was, but I remember his face. It was 5 years ago, maybe 6. There was a private party at the lake house, a fundraiser for the Glenbrook Fund. "And?" "He was there," she said. "He wasn't a beggar then. He was working catering. Or I thought he was. He was in the kitchen. I went in to get more ice. He was arguing with Wesley." "Wesley Hart?" "Yes." They were shouting. Wesley was holding a folder. He was telling this man, Cal, that he had to leave, that he had broken the agreement. Cal was angry. He said something about blood money. Then Wesley saw me. She took a sip of tea. Her hand was trembling. Wesley took me aside later. He told me the man was a stalker, a disturbed individual who was obsessed with grandmother. He told me I had to sign a statement saying the man had trespassed and threatened us, to get a restraining order. "Did you sign it?" I asked. "I signed everything Wesley put in front of me," Lila said, her voice hollow. "I was 22. Audrey, I just wanted to go back to the party. I wanted everyone to be happy. I signed the statement, and then I signed a check." "A check?" "Wesley said we needed to pay him to go away, to settle it quietly so he wouldn't make a scene in the press. He made me sign a check from the company account, $50,000, payable to cash." "Lila," I breathed. "You signed a payoff." "I didn't know," she cried, looking up at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed. "I thought I was protecting the family. Wesley said it was standard. He said it was risk management. But when I saw him today, when I saw him in the lobby, I remembered his eyes, and I realized he wasn't a stalker. He looked at me like he felt sorry for me." I looked at my sister. For years, I had envied her. I had envied her ease, her beauty, her closeness to mother. Now, looking at her in her oversized hoodie, I realized she wasn't the princess of the kingdom. She was the hostage. "They used you," I said. "They made you the bag man." "I am scared, Audrey," she whispered. "If you do this audit, that check is going to come up. My signature is on it. I am going to go to jail, aren't I?" "Not if you help me," I said. "Not if you tell the truth." "I can't," she said, shrinking back. "Mother would destroy me. She knows everything I have ever done. She has files, Audrey. She keeps files on us." I felt a surge of anger, hot and sharp, not at Lila, but at the woman who had turned her own children into leverage. "Stay here tonight," I said. "Take the guest room. You don't have to go back there." Lila shook her head. "I can't. If I am not there in the morning, she will know I was here. She will know I talked." She stood up. She looked at me, and for a second, the mask slipped back into place. She straightened her spine. She wasn't the little sister anymore. She was the terrified accomplice. "Just stop the audit, Audrey," she said. "Please, before it kills us all." She left. The silence she left behind was heavy with ghosts. 2 days later, Northlake found the smoking gun, the lead auditor. A woman named Sarah Jenkins, who had eyes like laser pointers, called me into the conference room. She projected a spreadsheet onto the wall. "We found a pattern," Jenkins said. "It is clumsy. Actually, they got arrogant." She pointed to a line item. "Sablewick Consulting. Griffin Threadworks has been paying Sablewick Consulting a retainer of $15,000 a month for 7 years," Jenkins explained, "plus quarterly bonuses for strategic advisory services." "Who is Sablewick Consulting?" I asked. "That is the interesting part," Jenkins said. "There is no office, no employees. The address is a virtual mailbox in Delaware, but we trace the incorporation papers. The registered agent is a paralegal who used to work for Hart and Dalloway." "Wesley," I said. "It gets better," Jenkins said. "The payments to Sablewick coincide almost perfectly with withdrawals from the Glenbrook Outreach Fund. The charity pays Griffin Threadworks for management services. Griffin Threadworks pays Sablewick for consulting, And Sablewick. Well, Sablewick pays credit card bills, private school tuition, leases on luxury vehicles. Whose vehicles? We are still matching the VIN numbers, Jenkins said. But one of them is registered to a C. Griffin. Candace. My mother was laundering money from her own mother's charity to pay for her life, and she was using the family lawyer to build the pipeline. Keep digging, I said. I want every receipt. I want to know who ate every single lunch paid for by Sablewick. The backlash was immediate. It didn't come in the form of a legal challenge. It came as a whisper. My cousin Sarah called me on Friday. Sarah was one of the few relatives I still tolerated. She lived in Boston and mostly stayed out of the drama. Audrey, she said, her voice tight. I just wanted to check on you. Are you doing okay? I am fine. Sarah, why? Well, she hesitated. Aunt Candace called my mom yesterday. She sounded really worried. She said you are having a breakdown. A breakdown? She said the pressure of the will was too much for you. She said you are hallucinating, that you are being manipulated by a homeless man you picked up off the street. She said you are mentally unstable. Audrey, she is asking the family to pray for your clarity. I closed my eyes. It was classic Candace. She wouldn't attack my competence. That could be proven. She would attack my mind. She would paint me as the hysterical, fragile spinster who had fallen under the spell of a grifter. I am not unstable, Sarah, I said calmly. I am uncovering a fraud, and Candace is scared. I believe you, Sarah said, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. The seed had been planted. Just be careful. The family is talking. People are saying you should step down for your own health. I am healthy, I said. I have never been healthier. I hung up. The pain was a dull ache in my chest. Even when I was right, I was wrong. Even when I held the smoking gun. They looked at my hands and saw tremors that weren't there. We need to go to Eastridge Cove, Cal said when I told him about the call. Why? Because the paperwork isn't enough, he said. The numbers prove the theft, but they don't prove the motive. Margot's letter mentioned documents. She said she hid them. We need to find them before Candace realizes they exist. Margot's house in Eastridge Cove was a sprawling Victorian mansion that sat on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic. It had been empty since she died. I had the keys as executor. We drove out on Saturday morning. The sky was the color of a bruised plum. The wind was whipping the ocean into a frenzy of whitecaps. The house smelled of cold air and memory. Dust sheets covered the furniture like ghosts. I led Cal through the foyer, past the grand staircase, to the back of the house, to the sewing room. This was Margot's sanctuary. It was the only room in the house that felt warm. Bolts of fabric were stacked against the walls. Silk, wool, velvet. An antique dressmaker's dummy stood in the corner, and in the center, her massive oak sewing table. She spent her life in here, I said, running my hand over the wood. She used to tell me that sewing was about structure. You have to build the bones before you can add the lace. Look for the anomaly, Cal said. He was scanning the room with that investigator's gaze. Look for something that breaks the pattern. We searched for an hour. We checked the floorboards. We checked the curtains. Nothing. Then I looked at the cabinet behind the table. It was filled with spools of thread, organized by color, hundreds of them, a rainbow of order, but one row was wrong. The blues were out of order. Margot never put navy next to turquoise. She graduated them by shade. I pulled out the spool of navy thread. It was heavy. It didn't slide off a peg. It was attached to a lever. I pulled it. There was a click. A section of the cabinet backing popped open. A false panel. Jackpot, Cal whispered. I reached inside. There was a metal box. I pulled it out and set it on the table. It wasn't locked. Inside were 3 leather-bound ledgers and a stack of yellowed photographs. I opened the top ledger. It was handwritten. It dated back 40 years. It detailed payments, not to vendors, but to people. Private investigator, child support, CG, settlement, H, D. She was tracking it, I said. She knew. She was tracking the blackmail. Audrey, Cal said. His voice was strange, strained. I looked up. He was holding one of the photographs. His hand was shaking violently. "What is it?" I asked. He turned the photo toward me. It was a black and white picture, taken maybe 50 years ago. It showed a young, vibrant Margot standing on a dock. She was laughing. Her arm was linked with a man. He was tall, handsome, with a jawline that looked cut from glass. "Who is that?" I asked. "I have never seen him." "That is my grandfather," Cal said. His voice cracked. "That is Elias Rowan." "Your grandfather knew Margot?" "He didn't just know her," Cal said, staring at the photo. "He was her partner before she married your grandfather. They started the company together. The original designs, they were his." "What happened to him?" "He disappeared," Cal said. "The family story was that he ran off, drank himself to death. But my grandmother always said he was pushed. She said the Griffins stole his patents and erased him." He looked at me. The connection between us suddenly felt electric and dangerous. Margot didn't just hire me because I was an investigator. Audrey. She hired me because she owed a debt. She knew what her family did to mine. She was trying to pay it back. "The rot," I whispered. "It goes back to the beginning." "It is the foundation," Cal said. "The whole empire is built on a stolen idea." We packed the documents into the box. We had to go. We had to get this to Northlake. We got into my car. Cal drove. I held the box in my lap like a bomb. We were 5 miles out of East Ridge Cove, on the winding coastal road, when I saw it, a black SUV. It was 2 cars behind us. "Cal," I said. "That car." He checked the rearview mirror. "I see it. It has been there since the turnoff." "Is it them?" "It is Gray," Cal said. "Greyhaven Risk Solutions, Wesley's private security goons." He gripped the steering wheel. "Hold on." He accelerated. The sedan surged forward. The SUV matched our speed instantly. "They are not trying to hide," Cal said. "They are trying to scare us." The road curved sharply to the left. Cal took the turn fast, the tires squealing. The SUV stayed tight on our bumper. I could see the silhouette of the driver. He was wearing sunglasses, even though it was overcast. "Call the police?" I asked, reaching for my phone. "No signal," Cal said. "Dead zone. We have to lose them." He slammed on the brakes. The SUV swerved to avoid hitting us. Cal spun the wheel hard to the right, turning onto a dirt logging road I hadn't even seen. We bounced violently over ruts and gravel. Branches whipped against the windows. The SUV tried to follow, but it was too heavy for the tight turn. I saw it overshoot in the mirror, brake lights flaring red. Cal drove like a demon. He navigated the logging road for 2 miles until it dumped us out behind a crowded strip mall on the highway. He pulled into the parking lot, slotting the car between 2 delivery trucks. He killed the engine. We sat there in the silence, listening to the ticking of the cooling metal. My heart was hammering against my ribs. "They followed us," I said. "They know we went to the house." "They know we found something," Cal said. He looked at me. His face was pale, but his eyes were burning with a cold, hard resolve. "This isn't just a legal battle anymore." "Audrey," he said. "They tried to run us off the road. They are done playing nice." I looked at the metal box in my lap. I thought about Lila's terror. I thought about Candace's threats. I thought about the man in the photo who had been erased so my family could be rich. The fear in my chest didn't vanish. It hardened. It turned into something cold and sharp, like a weapon. "Let them come," I said. "I have the ledger now, and I'm going to burn them down with it." Cal started the car. We pulled out onto the highway, merging into traffic. 2 ghosts carrying the past in a metal box, driving straight into the fire. The spreadsheet projected against the white wall of the conference room looked like a map of a circulatory system. But instead of blood, it showed money, and instead of a heart pumping life into the community, it showed a parasite sucking it dry. Sarah Jenkins, the lead forensic accountant from Northlake, tapped the screen with a laser pointer. Her face was grim. She had spent the last 72 hours drinking bad coffee and wading through 10 years of financial sludge. "This is the loop," Sarah said. "It is actually quite elegant in a grotesque way. The Glenbrook Outreach Fund receives tax-deductible donations from Griffin Threadworks. That is the intake. On paper, it looks like corporate responsibility. You get the gala photos, the oversized checks, the press releases about saving the arts in Briar Glen." "And the outtake?" I asked. Leaning forward, my eyes were burning from lack of sleep. "That is where it gets creative," Sarah said. "The fund issues grants, but look at the recipients: the Hopewell Initiative, the Civic Restoration Project, the Green Space Alliance. These sound like legitimate nonprofits, but when we pulled their incorporation papers, we found they are all registered to the same virtual office in Delaware." "Shells," Cal said. He was sitting in the corner, his cane resting against his knee. He looked darker today, heavy with the weight of confirmation. "Shells," Sarah confirmed. "The money goes into these entities as community grants. Then, those entities pay consulting fees or administrative retainers to a second layer of companies. And finally, that second layer transfers the funds into private accounts held in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland." "How much?" I asked. "How much did they steal?" Sarah hesitated. She looked at her notes, then at me. "Over the last decade?" she asked. "Conservatively? $12 million? I felt the air leave the room. $12 million. That wasn't just skimming off the top. That was gutting the fish while it was still swimming. That was why the factory equipment hadn't been updated in 15 years. That was why the pension fund was underfunded. That was why my grandmother had died worrying about rot. They weren't just stealing profit," I whispered. "They were stealing the principle." "It gets worse," Sarah said gently. "The gala events? The ones your mother organizes every year? The Crystal Ball? The Autumn Harvest? The expenses for those events are billed to the fund. The catering, the venues, the florists. And guess who owns the catering company and the floral supply?" "Let me guess," Cal said. "Shell companies owned by the same people." "Bingo," Sarah said. "They are charging the charity 3 times the market rate for flowers, paying themselves for the privilege, and then writing off the loss. It is a closed loop. Audrey, every dollar that enters the system stays in their pockets." I stood up. I walked to the window and looked out at the gray skyline of Holleridge. I felt a nausea that had nothing to do with the stale air in the room. "Who?" I asked. "Who are the signatories?" "The final accounts are blind," Sarah said. "Numbered. We can't see the names without a subpoena or a federal warrant. But the intermediaries? The people managing the flow?" She clicked a button. A document appeared on the screen. It was a transfer authorization for the Hopewell Initiative. The signature at the bottom was elegant, looping, and familiar. Wesley Hart. And below it, a witness signature. Small, cramped, terrified. Lila Griffin. I closed my eyes. "She signed everything," I said softly. "She is the officer of record for 3 of the shell companies," Sarah said. "Legally, if this blows up, she is the one holding the dynamite." I didn't call for an appointment. I walked into Hart and Dalloway LLP at 2 in the afternoon. Past the receptionist who tried to tell me Mr. Hart was in a meeting, and pushed open the heavy mahogany doors of his corner office. Wesley was pouring a drink. It was early for scotch. Even for him. He didn't look surprised to see me. He looked annoyed, like I was a client who had arrived 10 minutes early. "Audrey," he said, capping the crystal decanter. "I was just thinking about you. Do you want a drink? It is a single malt, very peat-heavy." "I don't want a drink, Wesley," I said. "I want to know about the Hopewell Initiative." He paused. His hand hovered over the glass for a fraction of a second before he picked it up. He took a sip, savored it, and turned to face me. His expression was maddeningly calm. It was the face of a man who had built a career on burying landmines and forgetting where he put them. "You are digging in the wrong garden, Audrey," he said pleasantly. "The Hopewell Initiative is a legacy project, It handles infrastructure investments. It handles laundering, I said. We traced the money, Wesley, $12 million, routed through Delaware and sent offshore, and you signed the transfers. Wesley sighed. He walked around his desk and sat down, gesturing for me to take the chair opposite him. I remained standing. Sit down, Audrey, he said, his voice taking on that paternal, condescending tone he had used since I was 6 years old. You are confused. I understand why. You are an analyst. You look at rows and columns. You see a number here and a number there, and you think you have found a pattern. But high finance isn't arithmetic. It is architecture. Don't gaslight me, I said. I know what a shell company is. Do you? He smiled. It was a tight, thin smile. Audrey, your grandmother was a brilliant woman, but she was old-fashioned. She didn't understand that to protect wealth in this century, you have to move it. You have to keep it fluid. What you call laundering, we call tax efficiency. Is that what you call using my sister as a shield? I asked. We found her signature. Wesley. On everything. You set her up to take the fall. Wesley's face hardened. The paternal mask slipped, revealing the shark underneath. Lila is an adult, he said cold. She is an officer of the company. She signed what she needed to sign to ensure her lifestyle continued. Do you think those trips to Paris paid for themselves? Do you think her apartment in the city was free? She enjoyed the fruit. Audrey, she can't complain about the orchard. She didn't know, I said. You told her she was saving the family. And she was, Wesley said. We all were. Look, Audrey, let's be practical. You are tired. You are out of your depth. You are running around with a paranoid drifter, making accusations that will only embarrass everyone. If you go public with this, you don't just hurt me. You destroy the company. You destroy the jobs in Holleridge. You destroy your mother, and you send your sister to federal prison. He leaned forward, placing his elbows on the desk. Or, he said softly, we can settle this quietly. Resign as executor. Cite health reasons. I can have the papers drawn up by 5 o'clock. In exchange, the trust will endow a private fund in your name. $2 million. Tax-free. You can go back to your quiet life. You can travel. You can be free. $2 million, I repeated. That is the price of my silence? It is a generous offer, Wesley said. Considering the alternative is a protracted legal battle that will leave you bankrupt and your family in ruins. I looked at him. I looked at the expensive suit, the panoramic view of the town he had helped loot, the crystal glass in his hand. You are right about one thing, Wesley, I said. I am tired. I walked to the door. I put my hand on the brass handle. But I am not confused, I said, and I am not for sale. Tell Candace I said hello. Audrey, Wesley called out, his voice dropping the pleasantry entirely. If you walk out that door, I cannot protect you from what happens next. Good, I said. I am done being protected. The invitation arrived by text message an hour later. It wasn't from Wesley. It was from Candace. Dinner tonight, 7 o'clock, just family. We need to talk. Please come, Mother. It was the please that threw me. Candace never said please. She commanded. She manipulated. But she never begged. I showed the message to Cal. We were sitting in my car in the parking lot of a grocery store, trying to decide our next move. It is a trap, Cal said immediately. Don't go. I have to, I said. If I don't go, she spins the narrative that I am estranged and unstable. If I go, I can look her in the eye. I need to see her face when she lies. She has had 60 years to perfect that face. Cal warned. You won't see anything she doesn't want you to see. I am going, I said. Wait for me here? I will be outside, Cal said. If you are not out in an hour, I am coming in. And I am bringing the cane. The drive to the family estate in Eastridge Cove felt like driving backward in time. I passed the schools I had attended, the parks where I had played alone while Lila was at dance class. The house rose up from the cliffside like a fortress. lit against the darkening sky. I parked in the circular driveway. The front door opened before I could knock. It wasn't a servant. It was Aunt Sarah. "Audrey," she said, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a restraint. "Oh, honey, we are so glad you came." "We?" I asked. Pulling back, I walked into the formal living room. It wasn't just family in the way Candace had implied. It wasn't a cozy dinner. It was a tribunal. Candace sat in the high-backed velvet chair by the fireplace. Around her sat my Uncle Robert, Aunt Sarah, two cousins I hadn't seen in years, and painfully, Lila. Lila was sitting on the ottoman at Candace's feet, staring at the carpet. She looked small, defeated. "Hello, Audrey," Candace said. Her voice was soft, laced with a terrifying sorrow. "Thank you for coming. We were all so worried." "Worried about what?" I asked, remaining in the archway. "The audit? You should be." "We are not worried about the company, Audrey," Uncle Robert said. He was a kind man, usually, but he looked grave now. "We are worried about you." "Me?" "We have heard reports," Candace said gently, "about your behavior, about the man you are keeping company with, a vagrant. Audrey, a man with a violent history?" "Cal is not violent," I said, "and he is an investigator hired by Margot." "Margot was sick," Candace said, shaking her head. "We all knew it, and now, it seems the strain has passed to you. Paranoia runs in families. Audrey, it is nothing to be ashamed of, but it needs to be treated." I looked around the room. I saw the pity in their eyes. They didn't see a whistleblower. They saw a woman who had cracked. Candace had done her work well. She had poisoned the well before I even arrived. "This is an intervention," I realized. "You aren't here to talk. You are here to commit me." "We want you to rest," Aunt Sarah said, reaching for my hand. "There is a wonderful facility in Vermont, just for a few weeks, just until you feel like yourself again." "I feel more like myself than I ever have," I said. Stepping back, "I found the accounts, Mother. I found the shell companies. I know about the Hopewell Initiative." Candace didn't flinch. She just looked at Uncle Robert with a sad, knowing nod. "You see? She is obsessed with these conspiracies, shell companies, laundering. It is exactly what Margot was saying at the end." "Lila," I said, turning to my sister, Tell them what you signed." Lila looked up. Her eyes were wide, filled with panic. She looked at me. Then she looked at Candace's hand resting on her shoulder. Candace's fingers were digging into the fabric of Lila's blouse. "Lila," Candace said softly, "tell your sister the truth. Tell her you are worried about her." Lila's lip trembled. She opened her mouth. Lila stammered. "I just want everyone to stop fighting. Audrey, please, just stop." "You coward," I whispered. "That is enough," Uncle Robert said, standing up. "You will not insult your sister. Audrey, we love you, but you are not well. We are going to petition the court for a medical guardianship if you do not agree to treatment." "A guardianship," I said. "So you can take control of the estate. That is the plan, isn't it? Declare me insane and put Candace back in charge." "We want you safe," Candace said. "I am leaving," I said. "Audrey, don't," Sarah cried. "I am leaving," I shouted. The sound of my own voice startled me. It startled them too. "And if any of you try to stop me, I will scream the house down." I turned and walked out. I didn't run. I walked. I heard them calling my name. But no one followed me. They were too polite for a physical altercation. They preferred to destroy me with paperwork and pity. I got into my car. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely key the ignition. As I drove down the long driveway, my phone buzzed. It was a notification, an email. From L. Griffin Threadworks, com. Subject, pizza recipe. I frowned. Lila didn't cook. I opened the email. There was no text, just an attachment, a password-protected zip file. And in the subject line, a string of numbers, 1998-0812, our grandmother's birthday. I drove to the grocery store where Cal was waiting. He got in the passenger seat, took one look at my face, and didn't ask how the dinner went. "Drive," he said. "We need to go somewhere safe." We went to the motel. It was a dive, the kind of place with neon signs that buzzed and carpet that smelled of decades of cigarettes. Cal's room was sparse: a bed, a desk, a stack of files. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the file Lila had sent. It wasn't a recipe. It was a data dump, scans of checks, emails between Wesley and Candace, and a folder labeled settlements. "She sent it," I said, stunned. "She sat there and let them call me crazy, and then she sent me the evidence." "She is playing both sides," Cal said. "She is terrified of your mother, but she knows the ship is sinking. She is tossing you a life raft while she stays on the deck." "Look at this," I said, clicking on a PDF. It was a scan of a settlement agreement, dated 10 years ago. It was an NDA, signed by Lila Griffin. "Why would Lila sign an NDA at 22? I asked. Cal leaned over my shoulder. He pointed to a paragraph. "The undersigned agrees to maintain absolute confidentiality regarding the paternity dispute involving the minor child. CER, and the financial arrangements made herein." "CER," I whispered. "Calder Rowan." Cal went still. He walked away from the screen and stood by the window, staring out at the parking lot. "That is why she recognized me," he said, his voice low. "Not just from the fundraiser. She signed the check that was supposed to silence me." "Silence you about what?" I asked. "Cal, tell me." He turned around. He began to unbutton his shirt. I watched, confused, until he pulled the shirt down over his shoulder. There was a scar. It wasn't a surgical scar. It was a jagged, ugly pucker of skin that looked like a burn or a tear. 10 years ago, Cal said. I found out my grandfather hadn't just disappeared. I found out he had left a journal. I started asking questions. I came to Briar Glen. I was 25. I was loud. I threatened to go to the press. He buttoned the shirt back up. 3 days later, I was walking home. A van pulled up. 2 men. They didn't ask for money. They beat me until I couldn't stand. One of them took a baton to my knee. He shattered the patella. He told me that if I ever said the name Griffin again, the next time it would be my neck. "Oh my God," I said. "The limp?" "It isn't an accident," Cal said. "It is a receipt for asking the wrong questions." "And Lila signed the settlement?" "They probably told her it was a nuisance suit," Cal said. "They probably told her I was a con artist trying to extort the family, so she signed the check that paid for my hospital bills and my silence, and Wesley called it problem-solving." "They broke you," I said, feeling tears prick my eyes. "And then they paid you to disappear." "I tried," Cal said. "I left. I lived in fast food joints and shelters. I changed my name. I became nobody. But then Margot found me." "How?" "She had her own investigators. She knew what they did. She tracked me down 2 years ago. She told me she was dying. She told me she couldn't fix the past. But she could give me a weapon to destroy the future they were building. She gave me the job. She gave me a purpose. And she gave me you." "Me?" She said, "Audrey is the only one who doesn't know she is a lion. Help her find her teeth." I looked at the screen, at Lila's signature, at the proof of my family's brutality. "I found a memory," I said suddenly. The realization hit me like a physical blow. That summer, the summer I was 12, Candace moved us. We left Holleridge in the middle of the night. She said it was a family emergency. We stayed in a hotel in Boston for a month. "That was the summer my grandfather's journal surfaced," Cal said. "That was the summer the rumors started." "She moved us to hide us," I said. "She moved us so we wouldn't hear the stories, so we wouldn't know that our fortune was built on a crime." "And now you know," Cal said. "Yes," I said. "Now I know." We took the files to the district attorney the next morning. The Cranford County DA's office was a bureaucratic maze of gray cubicles and fluorescent lights. We had an appointment with Assistant District Attorney Miller. Miller was young, Ambitious and polished. Too polished. He wore a watch that cost more than my car. He listened to us. He looked at the files. He nodded at the right times. But his eyes were dead. "This is compelling," Miller said, closing the folder. "Truly, the allegations of embezzlement are serious." "They aren't allegations," I said. "They are bank transfers. We have the routing numbers." "We do," Miller agreed. "But these things are complex. Jurisdiction is tricky. You have Delaware entities, offshore accounts. It takes time to unravel." He looked at Cal. "And Mr. Rowan," Miller said, his voice dropping a register. "Your involvement complicates things." "How so?" Cal asked. "Well," Miller smiled, opening a file on his desk. "You have a history, don't you? Arrests for vagrancy, trespassing, a restraining order filed by the Griffin family 10 years ago." "That was a fabrication," Cal said. "Perhaps," Miller said. "But to a jury? It looks like a vendetta, the disgruntled stalker teaming up with the estranged daughter. It is a messy narrative. Ms. Griffin, it lacks credibility." "Credibility?" I slammed my hand on the desk. "We gave you a map of a $12 million theft." "And we will look into it," Miller said soothingly. "But these investigations take months, years. My advice? Go home. Let us handle it. Don't make any more public statements. Don't disrupt the company operations. Wait, I repeated. "Justice is a slow wheel," Miller said. I stood up. I grabbed the folder. "It is not a slow wheel," I said. "It is a flat tire, and you are the one slashing it." "Ms. Griffin," Miller warned. "You know Wesley Hart, don't you?" I asked. "Do you play golf with him, or does he just buy tickets to your fundraisers?" Miller's face went cold. "I think you should leave." We walked out. The silence in the elevator was deafening. "He is in their pocket," Cal said. "They own the town," I said. "The police, the courts, the DA. There is no one to call." "There is the feds," Cal said. "But we need more. We need the original incorporation documents. The ones with the wet signatures. The ones that prove intent." I went back to my apartment that night alone. Cal went back to the motel to scan the rest of the documents. I unlocked my door. I knew instantly that something was wrong. The air felt different, displaced. I turned on the light. My apartment was neat. Too neat. I walked to my desk. I had left it cluttered with mail and coffee cups. Now the mail was stacked in a perfect pile. The coffee cups were gone, washed and drying in the rack in the kitchen, and in the center of the desk, perfectly aligned with the edge, was Margot's letter, the blue envelope I had hidden in the back of my underwear drawer. It was sitting there, opened. I walked over to it. My heart was hammering in my throat. Next to the letter was a single object, a small, porcelain cat. The one from my grandmother's collection, the one I had hated as a child because its eyes seemed to follow me. I hadn't seen that cat in 20 years. It had been in the display cabinet at the Eastridge house. Someone had gone to the house, taken the cat, come into my apartment, found my hiding spot, and arranged this tableau. It wasn't a robbery, it was a message. "We can come in whenever we want. We can find whatever you hide. We are watching." I picked up the porcelain cat. It was cold. I turned it over. On the bottom, written in black marker, was a date. Tomorrow. My phone rang. It was Cal. "Audrey," he said, "I found something else in the files. A trust deed. It references a secondary storage unit. In your name." "My name?" "It was opened 5 years ago. By Margot. She put it in your name so they couldn't touch it." "Cal," I said, my voice shaking. "They were here, in my apartment." "Get out," Cal said instantly. "Get out now. Come to the motel." "They left a message," I said. "They said, tomorrow." "That is the deadline," Cal said. "Whatever they are planning, they are doing it tomorrow. Get out. Audrey, run." I grabbed my bag. I grabbed the letter. I dropped the porcelain cat on the floor. It shattered into 100 pieces. I ran out of the apartment, down the stairs, and into the night. And for the first time, I wasn't running away from my family. I was running toward the war they had started. Seabrook Landing was a cluster of weathered saltbox cottages clinging to a strip of rocky coast 10 miles north of Briar Glen. It was a place for fishermen and summer tourists who couldn't afford the Hamptons. In November, it was a ghost town. The rental Cal found was small, smelling of damp wood and sea salt, with a heating system that rattled like a dying engine. I unpacked my single suitcase in the bedroom. It felt absurd. I was 33 years old, the executor of a multi-million-dollar estate, hiding in a shack like a fugitive. Shame washed over me, hot and prickly. I felt foolish for needing protection, for running away from my own apartment because of a porcelain cat. It felt dramatic. It felt weak. Then I looked in the mirror. I saw the dark circles under my eyes, the tension in my jaw, and I realized the shame wasn't mine. It was theirs. It was the specific frequency of shame Candace had been broadcasting at me since I was a child. You are too sensitive. You are making a scene. You are imagining things. They wanted me to feel foolish so I would stop looking. They wanted me to feel weak so I would surrender. Audrey? Cal's voice came from the main room. I made tea. I walked out. Cal was sitting at the scratched pine table, looking at a map of Griffin Threadworks' supply chain he had drawn on a piece of butcher paper. We are safe here, he said, pushing a mug toward me. The rental is under a shell company of my own, no name attached. A shell company? I asked, sitting down. You have those? I learned from the best, he said grimly. My grandfather taught me, before he disappeared. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. Cal, we need to talk about your grandfather. You said he was Margot's partner. You said he was erased. Cal stopped looking at the map. He looked at me. The silence in the room stretched, filled only by the sound of the wind rattling the window panes. He wasn't just her business partner. Audrey, Cal said softly. What do you mean? Margot didn't just betray a friend, Cal said. She betrayed her family. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet. He extracted a small, folded piece of paper. It was a birth certificate, or a copy of one. Read the name, he said. I unfolded it. The paper was fragile at the creases. Name: Calder Rowan Griffin. Mother: Elizabeth Griffin. Father: unknown. I stared at the document. Elizabeth Griffin. Who is Elizabeth? I asked. My brain was trying to process the dates. Elizabeth would have been born 3 years before Candace. My mother, Cal said. Margot's first child. I dropped the paper. It fluttered to the table like a dead leaf. Margot had another daughter? She was 18, Cal said. It was 1962. A scandal like that. An unmarried teenager. A father from the wrong side of the tracks. It would have ruined the debutante season. It would have ruined the merger Margot's father was planning. So they sent her away, I whispered. To a home for wayward girls in Vermont, Cal said. She gave birth to me. They told her to give me up. She refused. So they cut her off. They erased her from the family Bible. They pretended she never existed. And Candace? Candace was the replacement, Cal said. The perfect daughter. The one who followed the rules. She knew. Audrey. She knew she had a sister, and when my mother tried to reach out 20 years later, dying of cancer, Candace intercepted the letters. She made sure Margot never saw them. I felt the room spin. The inheritance wasn't just about money. It wasn't about me versus Lila. The entire structure of my family was a lie. We were living on top of a graveyard. You are my cousin, I said. The words felt heavy. Impossible. Technically, Cal said. But legally? I am a ghost. That is why Margot hired me. Not just to investigate the fraud. She wanted to know her grandson before she died. She wanted to see if I was like them. And she realized she had created a monster in Candace, Cal said. She realized her perfect daughter was the one stealing the silver, and the daughter she threw away had raised a son who knew the value of $1. I thought about Margot's harshness, the way she had pushed me away, the way she had warned me not to trust what looked polished. It wasn't cruelty, it was guilt. She looked at me and saw the potential for another Candace. She pushed me away to save me from the rot. "We have to confront her," I said. "We have to look her in the eye and tell her we know." We didn't go to the house. We went to the country club. It was Wednesday. Candace always had lunch at the Briar Glen Country Club on Wednesdays. It was part of her routine, a public display of leisure and stability. We walked into the dining room at 12:30. The maitre d' tried to stop us. Cal was wearing work boots and a flannel shirt, and I was wearing jeans. But I walked past him like I owned the place. Candace was at her usual table by the window, overlooking the frost-covered golf course. She was eating a Cobb salad and reading a document with reading glasses perched on her nose. She didn't see us until we were standing at the table. "Mother?" I said. She looked up. She took off her glasses. She didn't look surprised. She looked annoyed. "Audrey," she said. "And Mr. Rowan, I assume you are here to cause a scene? The club has a dress code. You know, we are not here for lunch," I said. "We are here to talk about Elizabeth." Candace froze. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. She put it down slowly. "I don't know who you are talking about," she said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes flickered. "Elizabeth Griffin," Cal said. "Your sister, the one you let die alone in a hospice in New Hampshire while you were planning the autumn harvest gala." Candace looked at Cal. Her face twisted. It wasn't fear anymore. It was hatred. Pure, unadulterated loathing. "You are a con artist," she hissed. "Margot was old. She was confused. You preyed on her guilt. You told her some sob story about a long-lost relative, and she bought it because she was desperate for a legacy that wasn't disappointing." She glanced at me on the word disappointing. "I have the birth certificate." "Candace," Cal said. "Forged," she spat. "Anyone can print a piece of paper. You are nothing. You are a grifter who smelled money. You think because you have the same color eyes as my father that you can walk in here and claim a seat at the table?" I caught it. "Your father?" I asked. "You just said Cal has your father's eyes." Candace blinked. She realized her mistake. If Cal was a stranger, she wouldn't know or care about his eyes. But she had seen the resemblance. She had seen it the moment he walked into the courtroom. "I said he has shifty eyes," she corrected quickly, "like a criminal." "You know who he is," I said, leaning over the table. "You knew Elizabeth. You knew she wrote to Margot. You burned the letters." "I protected this family," Candace snapped, her voice rising. Heads turned at the nearby tables. "I protected our reputation. Do you have any idea what it costs to maintain this life? Audrey, do you think money just appears? It requires management. It requires pruning the dead weight." "Is that what Elizabeth was?" I asked. "Dead weight?" "She was weak," Candace said cold. "She made a mistake, and she refused to fix it. She wanted to bring a bastard child into this house. She wanted to stain us. I did what had to be done. Just like I'm doing now." She stood up. She threw her napkin on the table. "You are not the executor, Audrey," she said. "You are a liability, and by the time the lawyers are done with you, you won't even be a Griffin." She stormed out. I watched her go. I felt a strange sense of calm. She hadn't denied it. She had justified it. "She admitted it," Cal said. "She called me dead weight." "She called you a stain," I said. "But stains are hard to remove. Cal, that is the point." We found Lila at the boathouse. I knew she would be there. It was her hiding place. When we were kids, whenever Candace went on a rampage, Lila would run to the old boathouse by the lake and sit on the dock, staring at the water. She was there now, wrapped in a blanket, shivering in the November wind. "Lila," I said softly. She jumped. She turned around, eyes wide. When she saw it was me, and Cal, she didn't run. She just collapsed back onto the bench. "She knows," Lila whispered. "She knows I sent you the file." "How?" "She checks the server logs," Lila said. She has IT monitoring everything. She called me this morning. She said I was cut off. No trust fund, no apartment, nothing. You are better off, I said, sitting down next to her. Am I? Lila laughed, a brittle, jagged sound. I don't know how to do anything. Audrey, I don't have a job. I don't have a degree. I have a closet full of dresses and a resume that says philanthropist. Who is going to hire me? We will figure it out, I said. But first, we need the truth, all of it. Cal stepped forward. He leaned on his cane. Lila, he said, why did you sign the transfers? I know about the NDA, but the laundering? Why? Lila looked at him. Tears spilled down her cheeks. They told me your mother was crazy, she whispered. Wesley and Mother. They sat me down when I was 21. They told me Margot had a secret daughter who was mentally unstable. They said her son, you, was violent. They said if you ever found out who you were, you would burn the company down. You would sue us into bankruptcy. So they made you afraid of me, Cal said. They said the only way to protect the company, to protect Margot, was to create a war chest. Lila explained. They said the Glenbrook Fund wasn't stealing. They said it was storing, building up cash reserves off the books so that if you ever attacked us, we would have the money to fight you, to pay you off. A war chest, I repeated. They stole $12 million and told you it was for self-defense. I believed them, Lila sobbed. I thought I was being a good soldier. I signed the papers because I thought I was saving the family from a monster. And then, when I saw you at the courthouse, and you looked so human. She buried her face in her hands. I am sorry, she choked out. I am so sorry. I didn't know. I just wanted to be safe. I put my arm around her. It was the first time I had hugged my sister in 10 years. She felt frail. You were a victim too, Lila, I said. But now you have to be a witness. I can't, she said into her hands. Wesley said, if I testify, I go to jail. I sign the checks. Audrey, I am the one on the hook. Not if you turn state's evidence, Cal said. Not if you give us the one thing that proves coercion. Lila looked up. What thing? Margot didn't just write letters, Cal said. She recorded conversations. She told me she hid a tape, a digital recorder. She said she taped a meeting with Wesley where he threatened her, where he forced her to sign the revised trust. A tape? Lila frowned. I never saw a tape. Think, I said. Where would she hide something small? Something she wanted you to find? Lila wiped her eyes. She gave me a music box. Last Christmas. It was broken. She said, keep it safe, Lila. The music is inside. Even if you can't hear it, my heart stopped. Do you still have it? It is in my apartment, Lila said. In the city? We have to go, I said. Now. Lila's apartment was a sleek, modern penthouse in Boston. It was cold and impersonal, like a hotel room. We found the music box on her vanity. It was an antique, inlaid with mother of pearl. I opened it. The mechanism was jammed. The tiny ballerina was stuck at a 45-degree angle. It never played, Lila said. Cal took the box. He turned it over. He pulled a small screwdriver from his pocket. He carried tools everywhere now, and unscrewed the base plate. Inside, wedged between the cylinder and the comb, was a small, silver memory card, an SD card. The music is inside, Cal whispered. He pulled his laptop from his bag. He inserted the card. We stood around the kitchen island. Me, Cal, and Lila. The file opened. Meeting_November_12.w AV. Cal pressed play. Static filled the room. Then, a voice. Margot. I won't sign it. Wesley. It is theft. Pure and simple. Wesley. It is protection. Margot. You are old. You are forgetting things. The board is concerned. If you don't sign this trust amendment giving Candace power of attorney, We will have to file for competency. We will put you in a home. Margot. A nice one, but locked. Margot. You are threatening me in my own house? Wesley. I am saving you from yourself. And from that mistake you made 50 years ago. Imagine if the press found out about Elizabeth. Imagine the share price plummeting. Sign the paper, Margot, or we release the medical records. We paint you as senile. And your precious Audrey? We will make sure she never works in finance again. We will ruin her. There was a pause, a sound of a pen scratching on paper, a ragged, defeated breath. Margot. You are a snake. Wesley. But snakes get their heads cut off eventually. Wesley. Sign here. Good. And don't worry about the second will. We will take care of that. It won't be found in a drawer. The recording ended. Lila was shaking. He threatened to lock her up. He threatened you. Audrey. And he admitted there is a second will, I said. A will they tried to destroy. This is it, Cal said. This proves duress. It proves the trust amendment was invalid. It proves Candace has been operating illegally for 2 years. We have them, I said. We took the recording to Northlake. Sarah Jenkins listened to it twice. This changes everything, she said. This isn't just embezzlement. This is elder abuse, extortion, conspiracy. Can we go to the police now? I asked. Not the local police, Sarah said. Wesley owns them. We need to go federal. But first, we need to secure the company. If Candace finds out we have this, she will shred everything. She will liquidate the accounts and run. How do we stop her? We go public, I said. We blow it wide open. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. It is risky, Sarah warned. If you announce this and you are wrong, they will sue you for defamation. They will bury you. We aren't wrong, I said. I picked up my phone. I dialed the number for the Griffin Threadworks board secretary. This is Audrey Griffin, I said. I am calling an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and I am inviting the press. The morning of the board meeting. The air in Holleridge was crisp and cold. I stood in the lobby of Griffin Threadworks. I was wearing my gray suit. I had my hair pulled back. I looked like a griffin. Reporters were gathered outside the glass doors. I had tipped off the Boston Globe and the Wall Street Journal. They smelled blood. The boardroom was full. Arthur Vance was there, looking furious. Candace was there, looking like a queen facing a peasant revolt. Wesley was there, whispering to a man in a dark suit I didn't recognize. That is him, Cal whispered in my ear. He was standing behind me, dressed in a suit we had bought at a thrift store. The man with Wesley. That is the consultant, the judge-fixer. I walked to the head of the table. This meeting is called to order, I said. You have no authority to call this meeting, Candace said. You are mentally unstable. We have a petition pending. I am the trustee, I said, and I have a report to present. I signaled to Sarah Jenkins. She projected the audit findings onto the screen. The room went quiet. The flowcharts, the shell companies, the transfers. Over the last 10 years, I said, my voice steady, $12 million has been siphoned from this company and its charity. This money was stolen from the shareholders, from the employees, and from the community. Lies, Wesley said, standing up. This is a fabrication. We have the bank records, I said. And we have a recording. I pressed play on the laptop connected to the room's sound system. Wesley's voice filled the room. We will put you in a home. Margot, a nice one, but locked. Wesley went pale. He sat down heavily. Candace didn't move. She stared at me, her eyes burning. This is illegal, she said. You recorded that without consent. Margot recorded it, I said. In her own home, it is admissible. You are destroying this family, Candace said. For what? For him? She pointed at Cal. No, I said. For the truth. Then, the doors opened. Lila walked in. She was wearing a white dress. She looked like a ghost. She walked past Candace. She walked past Wesley. She came and stood behind me. She didn't say a word. She just placed her hand on my shoulder. Candace gasped. It was the first time in her life she had lost control of her creation. "Lila?" Candace whispered. "Get away from her." Lila shook her head. "No, Mother, I am done." The cameras flashed through the glass walls. The board members were shouting. Wesley was trying to pack his briefcase. I looked at Cal. He gave me a small nod. We had done it. We had dropped the bomb. I walked out of the building an hour later. The police had arrived. State police. Not local. They were securing the records. I felt lightheaded. The adrenaline was fading, leaving me shaking. My phone buzzed. A text message. From an unknown number. I opened it. It was a photo. It was a picture of me and Cal on the courthouse steps that first morning. Me handing him the coffee. Him looking up at me. But the angle was wrong. It wasn't taken from the street. It was taken from above. From a window in the courthouse. Someone had been watching us from the beginning. The caption read, "You don't know who you're protecting." My chest tightened. "Cal?" I asked. He was standing next to me, watching the police cars. "What is it?" I showed him the phone. He looked at the photo. His face didn't change. He didn't look surprised. He looked resigned. "Who sent this?" I asked. "What does it mean?" Cal sighed. He turned to me. The wind caught his hair. "It means there is one more secret," he said. "One more thing Margot made me promise not to tell you unless you were ready." "Ready for what?" "Ready to know why your father really left," Cal said. "My father died in a car accident," I said. "When I was 4. "No, Audrey," Cal said gently. "That is the story Candace told you. That is the story she paid for. He is alive?" "He is," Cal said. "And he isn't just some random man. He is connected to the people who hurt me, to the people Wesley works for." I stared at him. The world tilted on its axis again. "You knew?" I whispered. "You knew my father was alive and you didn't tell me?" "Margot made me promise," Cal said. "She said, if she chooses the comfort of the lie, let her keep her dead hero father. But if she chooses the truth, tell her she has to face him." "Who is he?" "He runs Greyhaven Risk Solutions," Cal said. "The security firm that chased us, the men who broke my leg. Your father is the enforcer, Audrey. He is the one who keeps the secrets." I looked at the text message again. "You don't know who you're protecting." I wasn't protecting Cal. I had been protecting myself, from the knowledge that the monster wasn't just my mother, it was my father too. "Take me to him," I said. "Are you sure?" Cal asked. "Once you open that door, you can't close it." I looked at the police cars. I looked at Lila, who was sitting on a bench crying. I looked at the building that had consumed my family for 3 generations. "I am done with closed doors," I said. "I am ready." The wind outside the Threadworks building was biting, carrying the smell of upcoming snow, but I barely felt it. I was numb. The revelation that my father was not dead, but erased, sat in my stomach like a stone. "He runs Greyhaven?" I asked, my voice sounding thin in the open air. "My father runs the company that broke your leg?" "He didn't break it personally," Cal said, guiding me toward his car away from the cameras. "But he signs the checks. He manages the risks. And 10 years ago, I was a risk." "Why?" I asked. "Why would he do that? Why would he work for the people who destroyed him?" "Because they held the ultimate leverage," Cal said as we got into the car. He started the engine. The heater blasted warm air, but I couldn't stop shivering. "Candace didn't kill him, Audrey," Cal explained, merging into traffic. "She killed his character. When you were 4, your father tried to leave. He wanted to take you. He had found out about the money laundering, about the shell companies. He threatened to expose Candace and Margot." "So they killed him?" "No," Cal said. "They sued him. Candace filed for divorce. She accused him of things, Audrey, terrible things, abuse, neglect, addiction. She had Wesley manufacture evidence. They froze his accounts. They blacklisted him in the industry. They told him that if he didn't sign full custody over to Candace and disappear, they would put him in prison and he would never see you again. So he left, I whispered. He made a deal, Cal said. He agreed to vanish. In exchange, they dropped the charges and gave him a job where they could keep an eye on him. They made him the head of their private security. It was the perfect cage. He protects the family fortune because if the fortune collapses, the deal breaks, and he loses the little bit of safety he has. I looked out the window at the passing trees. My entire childhood, the tragic accident, the grieving widow, the noble absence, was a script. My father wasn't a hero who died too young. He was a hostage who was paid to stay away. Does he know? I asked. Does he know I'm the one blowing it all up? He knows, Cal said. That is why Greyhaven pulled back on the highway. That is why they didn't run us off the road. He saw you in the car. I closed my eyes. The complexity of the cruelty was breathtaking. Candace hadn't just removed my father. She had turned him into her watchdog. We have to finish this, I said, opening my eyes. We have to find the second will, now. The storage unit was located in a nondescript facility on the outskirts of Briar Glen. It was climate-controlled, smelling of dust and stale cardboard. Cal had the key. Margot had mailed it to him in the same package as his appointment letter. Labeled only with a number, Unit 404. We rolled up the metal door. The space was small, almost empty. There were no boxes of files, no stacks of cash. There was only a single object in the center of the concrete floor. It was a bolt of fabric. It was a heavy roll of midnight blue velvet. Wrapped in plastic, it looked like something from the Threadworks warehouse, vintage stock from the glory days. Fabric, I said. She left us fabric? Margot was a seamstress first, Cal said. She always said the best secrets are hidden in the seams. He pulled a pocket knife from his coat. He sliced through the plastic. Then, carefully, he began to unroll the velvet. Yard after yard of heavy, luxurious blue cloth pooled on the dirty floor. I helped him, my hands shaking. We unrolled 10 yards, 20, then we hit the core. Wrapped around the cardboard tube in the center was a thick envelope, taped securely. I ripped it free. The wax seal was unbroken. I tore it open. Inside was a legal document, bound in blue backing, Last Will and Testament of Margot Griffin, dated November 14th, 2025, 2 days after the recording Lila had found. I scanned the pages. The language was different here. It wasn't the dense, obfuscating legalese of Wesley Hart. It was clear, sharp. Article 7, I read aloud. In the event that my daughter, Candace Griffin, is found to have acted against the interests of the trust, or is implicated in any financial malfeasance, I skipped to the bottom. She shall be stripped of all beneficiary status, the entirety of the Griffin estate, including all holdings in Griffin Threadworks and the Glenbrook Outreach Fund, shall be transferred to a new entity, the Griffin Restoration Trust. Restoration, Cal said. She didn't want to keep the money. Listen to this, I said, my voice trembling. The purpose of the Restoration Trust is to identify and compensate the victims of the Griffin family's business practices, specifically including the descendants of Elias Rowan. I looked at Cal. She left it to you, I said. Or to your family? She left it to justice, Cal corrected. Keep reading. The executor of this trust shall be Audrey Griffin, with Calder Rowan serving as permanent oversight. This will supersedes all previous documents and is activated immediately upon the presentation of evidence of fraud. We have the evidence, Cal said. We have the recording. We have the ledgers. And now we have the mandate. This destroys Candace, I said. She gets nothing, no house, no allowance, no status. She gets what she earned, Cal said. We packed the will back into the envelope. We left the blue velvet on the floor. A puddle of luxury in a concrete box. Where do we go? I asked. The police? No, Cal said. We go higher. We go to the people Wesley can't buy. The Northeastern Financial Crimes Bureau was located in a federal building in Boston. It felt a world away from the wood-paneled corruption of Briar Glen. Here, the walls were glass and steel, and the people moved with the efficiency of predators. We didn't have an appointment, but the sheer volume of our evidence got us a room. We laid it all out on a sterile white table. The ledgers from the sewing room, the audio file on the memory card, the map of the shell companies, the second will, and the settlement agreement with Lila's signature. The agent in charge was a woman named Special Agent Rossi. She was sharp, unsmiling, and terrifyingly competent. She spent 2 hours going through the documents without saying a word. Finally, she looked up. "You understand what you are giving us?" she asked. "This isn't just a fraud case. This is a RICO case, racketeering, conspiracy, wire fraud. If we move on this, we freeze everything. The company stops. The accounts stop. The town stops." "We know," I said. "And your family," Rossi said, looking at me. "Your mother, your sister, your father, apparently. They will all be targets of the investigation. There is no immunity for you. Ms. Griffin, just because you brought this in, if you benefited from the funds—" "I didn't," I said. "I lived on my salary. Check my accounts." "We will," she promised. "But your sister? She signed the checks." I thought of Lila. I thought of her standing behind me at the board meeting, shaking but present. "My sister was coerced," I said. "She is a witness. I want that noted." "We will note it," Rossi said, "but we don't make promises." She stood up and gathered the files. "We are opening a formal inquiry," she said. "As of this moment, Griffin Threadworks is a crime scene. We will have agents at the headquarters within the hour." "Thank you," Cal said. "Don't thank me yet," Rossi said dryly. "The hardest part is when they fight back, and people like this, they always fight back." They fought back fast. By the time we got back to Briar Glen, the counter-offensive had begun. My phone blew up with notifications. An emergency petition had been filed in Cranford County Probate Court. Petition for removal of executor, plaintiff, Candace Griffin, grounds, mental incapacitation, undue influence, fraud. They weren't just trying to fire me. They were trying to erase me. The petition claimed I had been seduced and manipulated by a known grifter and was suffering from a psychotic break. They demanded an immediate hearing. Judge Markham granted it for 4 o'clock that afternoon. We walked into the courtroom feeling the weight of the entire town against us. The gallery was packed. Reporters, former employees, curious neighbors. Everyone wanted to see the Griffin family implode. Candace was sitting at the plaintiff's table. She looked impeccable in a navy suit, her face a mask of sorrowful concern. Wesley sat beside her, looking like a viper ready to strike. But the chair next to them was empty. Lila wasn't there. I sat at the defense table with Cal. We had no lawyer. We didn't need one. We had the truth. "All rise," the bailiff called. Judge Markham swept in. She looked tired. She looked like she knew this was the end of her career in this town, one way or another. "We are here on an emergency petition," Judge Markham said. "Mr. Hart, you may proceed." Wesley stood up. He didn't use notes. He just leaned on the lectern and spoke with a voice dripping with regret. "Your Honor," he said, "this is a tragedy. Audrey Griffin is a beloved member of this family, but she is unwell. For the past week, she has been under the influence of the man sitting next to her, a man with a criminal record, a man who has been living on the streets, a man who has manipulated her grief to gain access to the estate." He pointed a finger at Cal. "Calder Rowan is a fraud," Wesley declared. "He posed as a beggar to elicit sympathy. He has fed Ms. Griffin lies about conspiracies and hidden wills. We ask the court to remove Ms. Griffin for her own protection and appoint a stable alternative as executor." "And who is this alternative?" Judge Markham asked. "Lila Griffin," Wesley said. "She is a shareholder. She is familiar with the company operations. She is sound of mind." The doors at the back of the courtroom opened. Lila walked in. She wasn't wearing business attire. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. She walked down the center aisle, ignoring the whispers. "Ms. Griffin," Judge Markham said, "you are being nominated as executor. Do you accept?" Lila stopped at the railing. She looked at Candace. Candace smiled at her, a tight, encouraging smile that was really a threat. "Do this, and you are safe." Lila looked at me. She saw the fear in my eyes. She saw the hope. "No, Your Honor," Lila said clearly. The courtroom gasped. Candace's smile vanished. "I do not accept," Lila continued, her voice gaining strength. "I am not a suitable replacement, and neither is my mother." "Lila," Wesley snapped, "you are confused." "I am not confused," Lila said. "I am complicit, and so are you." She turned to the judge. "Everything Audrey said is true," Lila said. "The shell companies, the laundering, the coercion. I signed the checks because I was afraid, but I am not afraid anymore." "Objection!" Wesley shouted. "This is being manipulated too." "Sit down. Mr. Hart," Judge Markham barked. She turned to Cal. "Mr. Rowan," she said. "The plaintiff claims you are a fraud who posed as a beggar to infiltrate the family. What say you?" Cal stood up. He didn't lean on his cane. He stood tall. "I did pose as a beggar, Your Honor." Cal said, "It was a disguise, but it was also a test." "A test?" "Margot Griffin hired me to find out if there was any humanity left in her family." Cal said, "She told me. Go to them with nothing, see who offers you a hand, and who calls security." He looked at Candace. "Candace Griffin called security," Cal said. "Lila Griffin offered me money to go away, but Audrey Griffin?" He looked at me. "Audrey Griffin bought me a coffee and sat with me in the cold. She didn't know who I was. She didn't know I could help her. She just saw a person." Cal reached into his pocket and pulled out a document. "As for my credentials," he said, "here is the retainer agreement signed by Margot Griffin. And here," he pulled out a second document, "is the bank record showing a payment of $50,000 from Greyhaven Risk Solutions to a man named Marcus Vane, the man who broke my leg 10 years ago, authorized by Robert Griffin." The room went silent. "Robert Griffin?" Judge Markham asked. "Audrey's father?" "The same," Cal said. "He is the head of security for the Griffin Trust. He is alive, and he is the muscle behind the fraud." Judge Markham looked at the documents. She looked at Candace. Candace was staring straight ahead, her face frozen in a rictus of shock. The secret she had buried deepest, the husband she had enslaved, was out. "This court has heard enough," Judge Markham said. She slammed her gavel down. "The petition to remove Audrey Griffin is denied. Furthermore, based on the testimony of Lila Griffin and the evidence presented, I am ordering an immediate freeze of all assets belonging to the Griffin Trust, Griffin Threadworks, and Candace Griffin personally. The executor is granted full authority to cooperate with federal investigators." "You can't do this!" Candace screamed. She stood up, knocking her chair over. "This is my company. I built this." "You stole this," Judge Markham said coldly. "Court is adjourned." The scene outside the courthouse was chaos. The press had multiplied. Cameras were everywhere. Candace tried to exit through the side door, but they were waiting. "Mrs. Griffin, is it true you laundered money through a charity?" "Mrs. Griffin, is your husband alive?" "Mrs. Griffin, did you threaten your own daughter?" Candace stopped on the steps. For a second, she tried to compose herself. She smoothed her hair. She put on the smile, the dazzling society matron smile that had charmed donors for 40 years. "It is all a misunderstanding," she began, her voice bright. "We are a family. We have complex finances, but we do everything with love." Then, a reporter from the Globe shouted, "We have confirmation from the FBI. They are raiding the Threadworks offices right now." The smile cracked. It didn't fade. It shattered. Her face contorted into something jagged and raw. She looked at the cameras, her eyes wild, realizing the performance was over. She didn't speak. She just turned and ran. She ran toward her town car, pushing Wesley out of the way, scrambling into the back seat like a frightened animal. The car sped away, leaving Wesley Hart standing alone on the steps, holding his briefcase, looking like a man who realized he had missed the last lifeboat. I didn't celebrate. I felt hollow. I went back to my apartment. The police had cleared it, dusted for prints, and told me it was safe, but it didn't feel safe. I sat on my sofa, staring at the empty spot where the porcelain cat had been. There was a knock on the door. It was a courier. Not a legal courier, a private one. "Package for Ms. Griffin," he said. "Delayed delivery. Instructions were to deliver it 48 hours after the reading of the will." I signed for it. It was a thick envelope. The handwriting was Margot's. I sat down and opened it. There was a note clipped to the front. "Read this only if you chose the hard road. If you took the money and ran, burn this." I took a deep breath. I unfolded the letter. "My dearest Audrey, if you are reading this, you have burned it down. I am proud of you, and I am sorry. I am sorry because the victory you feel right now is going to taste like ash when you read the next paragraph. You know about Elizabeth, you know about the fraud, you know about your father, but there is one thing you don't know, the thing that made me hardest on you. You were not an accident, Audrey. And you were not a simple blessing. 34 years ago, Candace came to me. She was desperate. Her status in the family was slipping because she hadn't produced an heir to the company. Lila was not born yet. The board was pressuring me to sell. Candace made a deal with me. She promised to give me a granddaughter, someone I could mold, someone who could take over if I agreed to sign over the voting rights to her for 10 years. She didn't want a child, Audrey. She wanted a contract extension. She got pregnant with you not out of love, but out of ambition. You were a negotiation tactic. I agreed. I wanted an heir. I wanted you. But when you were born, and I saw how she looked at you, like you were an asset, a piece of collateral, I realized what I had done. I had let her sell your childhood before it even started. That is why I pushed you away. I couldn't bear to look at you and see my own greed staring back. I wanted you to hate us. I wanted you to run away and find a life that wasn't transactional. But you came back. You always came back. Forgive me, if you can, but do not forgive her. She does not know how to be sorry. She only knows how to be solvent. Love. Grandmother. I put the letter down. I sat in the silence for a long time. I wasn't a daughter. I was a deal. I was a clause in a contract. I didn't cry. I think I had run out of tears. I just felt a cold, hard clarity. I went to see her one last time. She was at the house in Eastridge Cove. The FBI hadn't seized it yet. She was sitting in the living room, in the dark, drinking a glass of wine. The house was cold. The heat had been turned off. "You won," Candace said from the shadows. She didn't look at me. "I didn't win," I said. "Nobody won. We just survived." I walked over and stood in front of her. She looked old. The makeup was gone. The armor was stripped away. "Margot told me," I said, "about the deal, about why I was born." Candace swirled the wine in her glass. She didn't deny it. "I did what I had to do," she said. Her voice was flat. "You think you are so righteous. Audrey, you think the world is black and white, truth and lies." She looked up at me. Her eyes were dry. "The world is gray," she said. "I was a woman in a world of men. I had to secure my position. I had to secure your position. Do you think you would have had that private school, that education, that comfortable life if I hadn't made deals? I sold pieces of my soul so you could have a whole one." "You didn't sell your soul for me," I said. "You sold it for the chair at the head of the table." "It is the same thing," she snapped. "Power is safety. Without it, you are nothing. Look at Elizabeth. Look at your father. They had no power, and they were erased. They were erased by you, I said. I survived, she shouted. I did what women have to do to stay safe in a family like this. I was the firewall, Audrey. I took the heat so you could be soft. I am not soft, I said. Not anymore. No, she said, looking at me with a strange, twisted pride. You aren't. You destroyed me. You are exactly like me. No, I said. I am nothing like you. Because I know when to stop. I turned to leave. Audrey, she called out. I stopped. But I didn't turn around. What happens to me? She asked. The fear was finally there. Where do I go? I don't know, I said. You have no money. You have no friends. You have no family. Maybe you can find a shelter. I hear the one on 4th Street is quiet. I walked out. I closed the heavy oak door behind me. I heard the latch click. It sounded like the end of a sentence. I found Lila sitting on the hood of my car in the driveway. She was looking up at the stars. Is she okay? Lila asked. She is alive, I said. That is all she ever wanted. Lila hopped off the car. She wrapped her arms around herself. Cal is waiting down the road, she said. He said he wanted to give us a minute. He is a good man, I said. He is, Lila agreed. He is family. She looked at me. Her eyes were searching my face, looking for the sister she had betrayed, the sister she had saved. Audrey, she said softly, can we ever go back? Can we ever be sisters again? Like before? I looked at her. I loved her. I knew that. Despite the cowardice, despite the years of silence, I loved her. But I couldn't lie to her. Not anymore. The truth was the only currency we had left. I don't know, I said honestly. We don't know each other. Lila. We only knew the roles we were playing. I was the scapegoat. You were the golden child. We have to figure out who we are when the script is gone. I am scared, she admitted. Me too, I said. So, she asked, who are we without the lie? I looked at the house, dark and looming. I looked at the road ahead, where Cal was waiting. I don't know, I said. But we have the rest of our lives to find out. I opened the car door. Lila got in the passenger side. I got in the driver's seat. I didn't look back at the house. I put the car in gear and drove down the long, winding driveway, leaving the ghosts behind in the dark. Driving toward a future that was messy and difficult and terrifyingly, beautifully real. Thank you for listening to My Sister Froze at Inheritance Meeting when she saw me with a beggar. Writing Audrey's journey from the shadows into the light has been an emotional ride, and I hope you felt every twist and turn of the Griffin family saga. I would love to know where you are listening from. Please leave a comment below and share your city or country. It is always amazing to see how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this story and want more tales of betrayal, justice, and family secrets, please subscribe to Revenge Stories. Your support helps me keep writing. What did you think of Audrey's final choice? Was she right to walk away from Candace without looking back? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Until next time, keep your eyes open. You never know who is watching.